to the special meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission, July 28th, 2022. I'll ask the staff to do a roll call. Yeah, just do a roll call, please.
Chair Greenfield.
Here.
Vice Chair Lemire.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Cribbs.
Here.
Commissioner Freeman.
Here.
Commissioner Kleinhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Oche.
Yeah, please.
Chair, that's 7 present.
Thank you. If there are any members of the public who'd like to speak tonight, please raise your hand and we'll get to you in a moment. Our first order of business is to adopt a resolution authorizing the use of teleconferencing for the Park and Recreation Commission meeting during the COVID-19 state of emergency. This is something we've been doing every month on a monthly basis as required. Could I get a motion or a motion to move forward with this, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you. And a roll call vote, please.
Chair Greenfield.
Here.
Vice Chair Lemire.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Cribbs.
Too, sir.
Commissioner Freeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus.
Yes.
Commissioner Oche.
Yes, please.
Chair, that's a 7-0 vote.
Thank you. And now this is the opportunity for public comment. If there are any members of the speaker, have you filled out a speaker card? Yes. So this is an opportunity to speak on items that are not on this evening's agenda. If you're looking to speak to an item that is on the agenda, then we'll have you speak during that item after the staff presentation. Yes, you recall. Yeah, thank you.
Chair, we do have one public speaker, Matthew Lenang and Michael Shalone.
I'm seeing two now. Yes, great. Go ahead, please, with 3 minutes.
Michael, you're on the clock. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I might have misunderstood and wanted to speak later. I'm wanting to address the dog park. Should I do that after this or now?
Later, please.
Okay, so I'm lowering my hand.
And Matthew, if you're looking to speak on an item that's on the agenda as well, go ahead and lower your hand and we'll call on you later. But your hand's still up, so let's go ahead.
Oops, I'm trying to, okay, can you hear me? Sorry, I was having some problems with the audio. I don't know if you're able to hear me.
Yes, we hear you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, my item is not on the agenda, so this is the right time to speak, right?
Yes, go ahead, please.
I did send it by email. This is about building a second swimming pool for Palo Alto because Rinconada Pool is just gotten too crowded and it's extremely popular ever since the pandemic. It seems like there's twice as many people using it. So I was going to suggest building a second pool in either in Mitchell Park or some other location, but Mitchell Park makes sense because it could serve the southern part of Palo Alto. Anyway, you can see the details in the email that I wrote, but is there anybody looking into this? Is there any committee or anything that's looking at the feasibility of a second pool? And if not, how can we get one started? Currently there's a lot of programs that use the Rinconada Pool, the Masters program, the PASA, and the Camp Rinconada. And they all have to share the pool with lap swimmers and recreational swimmers. So if we had a second pool, the load could be balanced, and the programs could kind of be, some of them could be at the second pool and some could be at Rinconada, and it would be less crowded, so there would be more availability for people to use it for recreation. I don't have to use the whole 2 minutes. You can read the email. It's basically requesting that we set up a committee or something to figure out if we can build a new pool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just so the public knows, given the opportunity to speak during oral communications, typically it's not an interactive dialogue, and it's something the commission can refer to later and take up with staff. But we thank you for participating.
Okay, thanks.
And now we'll move on to the department report. Assistant Director Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, are we doing the agenda changes and deletions first, or should we move?
Thank you. I got ahead of myself. Next up is the agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Does anyone have any suggestions for changing the agenda aside from actually going through the agenda in the order it's listed? Okay. Barring any discussion, we'll move forward. And now we'll have the approval of the minutes. These are the draft minutes from the June 28th Parks and Rec meeting. And does anyone have any comments on the minutes before we look for a motion to approve them?
Yes, please, Chair. For page 16, line 22, we need to replace the word compatibility with sustainability related, please. And then I think page 15, line 26, will still be should replace is still. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others with changes to suggest? Johnny, your light is on. Your mic is on. Ann?
I just have one on page 4, 17, 18, and 19 about, excuse me, middle school athletics, running a full complement of program, including, and it calls out girls and boys sometimes with the sports, but sometimes it just leaves the sport without boys and girls. And so I wouldn't want anybody to assume that we didn't have girls sports with most of those programs. So I'd like to see that corrected.
Okay. And anything else?
No, not
So I know,
for now. That's all. Thank you.
so I know there were some kind of general cleanup changes that you talked to me about, and I had forwarded a list of these changes, a list of similar changes to staff. Just kind of a follow up on the same kind of sloppy changes, or sloppy minutes, just word errors and words missing and too many words and things like that. And there's also some corrections that I have for the names of UD Dang on page 10 and a couple of places. Her name is spelled Dang. Or earlier in the section, it's correct. Or earlier in the minutes is correct. And I think rather than going through all of these changes, I'll just leave these to staff. There's nothing significant here. Is that okay with staff?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, definitely. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to make a quick comment on that. I recognize that our minutes lately have been had problems with quality control, and staff are going to work to improve those issues moving forward. We've got a few plans in place. The first is we're going to switch from our current vendor that takes the notes to a new one. Happens to be the same one that our city clerk's office is changing to. We're hoping for a little better service, a little cleaner. Additionally, staff will spend more time reviewing to catch those so the commissioners don't have to. That should not be your job. It's our job to catch those errors. So my apologies. And then lastly, I'm just going to double check with the other commissions to see if there's some best practices I can borrow and make sure we don't have nearly as many as we've had lately.
Thank you, Darren.
Jeff, could I add one thing?
Yes,
First
please.
of all, thank you, Darren, for that report. At some point, either this last retreat or the retreat before that, we had talked about going to action only minutes, and we said we really liked having the context and that we would relook at that. And I thought it was going to be in the fall. So it might be good for what you're doing now to have us relook at it in a couple of months and see how it's working, with the idea that maybe the action minutes are easier for certainly staff time, which we're very much aware of, and also commissioners' time. So
Thank you, Jan. So just to clarify, we were originally using verbatim minutes, and then we were given the option of moving to summary or action minutes. And so we're on summary minutes now, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Thank you. And so I mean, overall, the content's pretty good, but they just could be a little bit cleaner. So I think it makes sense to see what happens after we switch to the new vendor and look to revisit the question of do we want to continue with summary minutes or would action minutes suffice for us? So that's something that we can take up at a later date. Thank you. Yeah.
Just as a clarification, it was that we were asked to move to action minutes, and there was strong opinions on the commission at the time to retain some semblance of what we had before. So we were asked by the council, or the city council, to move to action, and then we went to summary. So just to clarify that process.
Thank you. I think some helpful information as well would be to understand what the range of other commissions are doing. I know some are using action minutes and some are using summary minutes. Some are using both summary and verbatim minutes. So if we could get that information to consider how to move forward when we discuss this next, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I did that today, Chair. And in fact, there are only two other commissions. They're both the other CSD commissions. That's Public Arts and Human Relations. They both use action only, but all the other boards and commissions use some form of either summary or a mix of that and action, or in some cases like the PTC, it's summary and verbatim.
Thank you. Now, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Cribbs, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown, and a roll call vote, please.
Chair Greenfield,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lemaire,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Cribbs, Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes.
Commissioner Oche.
Yes.
Chair, that's a 7-0 vote.
Thank you. Now I think we're ready to move on to the department report.
Yes, thank you. Darren Anderson with Community Services Department. I'll give you a recruitment update for Community Services. We're in the final stages of filling a vacant park maintenance position. Looking forward to filling that. We're still in the recruiting stage for a vacant parks irrigation position. Still in the recruiting stage for the senior management analyst. We're recruiting 3 program assistants that are vacant to help with the 3 community centers. And we're in the interview process for a CSD manager at Coverly. Speaking of Coverly, an update on the Coverly Gym A and B, which still remain closed due to the flooding issue. Quick reminder on how we got here and when. It was February 17th, 2022, when city staff discovered major flooding under Coverly Gyms A and B. They were investigating 2 areas where the hardwood floors in the gym were showing signs of discoloration and waviness. They found 3 inches of standing water, a tremendous amount of humidity and moisture in the crawl space under the gym floors. So there was significant water damage and mold found in the crawl space, the gym floors, the gym walls, and significant pipe corrosion and hot water piping for the heating system. There are a number of repairs that are required. The hazardous material remediation for the mold, asbestos, and lead paint, heating system and piping replacement, gym floor replacement, gym wall replacement. That's 2 layers, both sheetrock and gypsum board, and the gym bleacher removal, moving, and storage and installation while the rest of the repairs are taking place. These repairs are anticipated to be quite expensive. There's currently no estimate for when the gym will be reopened. The city will need time to analyze the options once the analysis is complete. There's also the added complication that the gym is owned by the school district and leased to the city. The repairs will involve creating a capital improvement project and again, need significant amount of funding. I may have more information on that the next meeting. I'd be glad to help provide it then. But right now, all I've got else to say is we still have use of the pavilion, and we are using people that were displaced from A and B into the pavilion. And where we don't have space there, we're referring them to other gyms like the YMCA. The Stanford Palo Alto playing field infill replacement project was delayed because we only received one bid to do the work, and that bid was 4 times the anticipated cost from the estimates we received. We're working with our procurement team to issue what's called a RFI, request for information, from other contractors to look at this bid, see if it's an accurate reflection of the current market cost for this work, or if we can get a better price if we go out to bid again. We hope to have the results from the RFI by the 3rd week in August. And then once we have that information, we'll form our direction. And going back to council, I anticipate in September to request funding, and then the work would be scheduled for sometime around late fall. In the meantime, staff is doing extra cleanup. We have a new piece of equipment that we've got to help pick up the melted infill. It's clumping up, and so this new infill comes out. We'll be doing that once a week with this machine, in addition to staff out there helping with the supplement that effort to try to keep it as clean as we can. At last month's meeting, there was a question about student enrollment in middle school athletics program by academic year. Just a reminder, the middle school athletics program includes basketball, volleyball, flag football, tennis, track and field, cross country, and wrestling. So in academic year 2019-2020, this is pre-pandemic, we had a total enrollment of 1,409 students. Academic year 2020 to 2021, this is during the heart of the pandemic, we had a total enrollment of 850 students. And then academic year 2021 to 2022, sort of the recovery stage of the pandemic, there was a total enrollment of 1,120 students. Open space, there was a downed tree in the Los Trancos Trail up at Foothills Nature Preserve. This was cleared last Friday. Rangers got to it. The chair asked me to provide an update on efforts that are being done to ensure that trees are still getting water as we reduce irrigation due to the drought. And I just wanted to clarify, areas that we are irrigating regularly are the functional turf. That's a term the state used to describe what you are allowed to still irrigate. And by functional, that is turf that's used for active recreation. So the playing fields, for example, fit that example. And we irrigate these areas as necessary for health and safety, still being cautious to not waste water in those areas. Non-functional turf, that is aesthetic turf. This is what you might see between roadway and sidewalk. There might be a little section of turf that once was irrigated pre-drought is no longer being irrigated. And here's the big caveat, unless there are trees adjacent to those areas. Trees are sending out roots far and wide to get water from irrigated turf. And we've got a good understanding from the last drought where in some areas we unintentionally impacted those trees as we dialed back irrigation. We noticed it pretty quickly and remedying it then, but this go around, we're preemptively trying to get it right, making sure those areas where the trees are adjacent to turf are still getting irrigated. In some cases, you will see a green piece of turf that's not used for active recreation, and it begs the question why. And the reason is there are adjacent trees that are still drinking from that. We don't have an independent irrigation system that only fills the roots. But in truth, those roots are going far out into the turf area and need to be irrigated because that's what they've been raised on for the last 25, 30, 40 years in some areas. I wanted to give a couple examples of areas where you can see this in place. So one is a section of East Bay Shore Road. Like I described before, between roadway and bike path in this case, there had been some irrigated turf there. None of that's being irrigated at all, and it's browned out quite significantly and patchy already, where dirt is now there and no grass. So that's an area where you can see it. There aren't trees adjacent to the areas where we turned off grass, so there are no impacts there. We're just trying to save water. El Camino Park is an interesting one where you can see a mix of our efforts there. So you've got natural grass, turf, baseball field that's being irrigated regularly. That'll look green. Outside the outside fence, outfield fence, there's a lot of grass that's just aesthetic. It's really not used very actively. That's being let go brown. But a little bit further towards that south end of the park, you get to a stand of redwood trees that are drinking from that portion of the grass. So that's irrigated. So you'll see that little mix, which can look very strange. It's aimed at keeping the healthy play areas safe and functional for sports and the trees alive and letting the rest brown out.
Thank you, Darren. Can I interrupt with a quick question on that? If someone has concerns about public trees that may not be getting sufficient water, what should they do? Who should they contact?
I think it would be urban forests would be the first one, and we work closely with them. So if that tree happens to be in a park or open space area, they'll coordinate with us and make sure we're changing things up. Sometimes it's the kind of thing where they'll bring out a water truck. And if it's an area that's not possible to irrigate and we have a stress tree, and I'll give you my third example in a minute where that sort of
a hotline for concerns like this, and if that information could be shared, that would be helpful. If you could share the hotline or contact information, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I can bring that as the next department report unless one of my colleagues happens to look that up in the meantime while I go on. The third example I was going to give is a grove of redwoods up at Foothills Park, Foothills Nature Preserve, that's never been irrigated. There is no irrigation there, nor is there an adjacent turf. This is near the Orchard Glen picnic area. It's called Lee Grove. Several very large redwoods. Staff noticed they were starting to stress just with the lack of rainfall over these last few years. And usually there's sort of a delayed reaction. And likewise, there's a delayed reaction in improvement. So you start irrigating, it might be a while before the trees show. So the rangers hooked up a temporary irrigation system using an underground quick coupler. This is where you would put in a quill and you can run a hose there. So we're using that to help provide extra water for those redwoods that are experiencing stress up there.
Darren, we have that hotline number.
Oh, great. Can you share it?
Chair, the number to the Urban Forestry hotline number is 650-496-5953. 496-5953.
Thank you, Lom. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Javad, actually.
And Javad. A report back on the July 4th Summer Festival. This was held at Mitchell Park. It went really well. There was live music, food trucks, kids games and activities and inflatables. We don't have an estimate for the number of folks that came, but we know it was well attended, and many visitors reported to the recreation staff that it was a great event. 4th of July was also a busy night for open space preserves. Historically, we just get lots of visitation from folks that want to watch fireworks shows. And that was again true this year. Rangers reported that everything went well. There were no fires, no medical calls in our open space preserve. So it was a good event, and mainly because they were well prepared and put in a lot of effort. Same is true of our fire department, police department, and Office of Emergency Services. We all coordinate not only within our departments, but also other jurisdictions and agencies to make sure regionally we're keeping watch outs. We've got no parking on sides of roads where sometimes vehicles might park and set off fireworks, that kind of thing. Summer camps are going very well. There are camps for music, dance, theater, art, science, sports and recreation, Foothills Camp, Lego, technology, writing, and cooking. Most of the camps are being offered in person, but we have a few academic camps that are virtual. And Vice Mayor Koo made a special appearance on July 1st at the Young Mayor's Citizens Camp, where citizens build their own small-scale cities with Legos and learn how their decisions impact the community. There are 3 more summer twilight concerts coming up. They're free. They're located in Mitchell Park, and they start at 6:30 p.m. The next one is on Saturday, August 6th, again, 6:30 p.m. And there are also concerts on August 13th and August 20th, all at Mitchell, all at 6:30. There is a free family concert series at the Magical Bridge Playground this summer. There's a concert tomorrow, July 29th from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. Again, they're free, family-friendly, sensory-friendly, and all are welcome. Concerts are every Friday in August. And if you're unable to attend the performance in person, they'll be live streaming it on their Magical Bridge Facebook page. There'll be a community meeting via Zoom regarding the Coverly Field restroom project. That'll be on Wednesday, August 17th at 6:30 p.m. And I sent an invite to the commission, so you'll have the invites. But people will RSVP to Peter Jensen, who's the city's landscape architect, and his email is peter.jensen@cityofpaloalto.org. This year's Moonlight Run will be held on Friday, September 9th from 6 to 10 p.m. in the usual location. So more to come on that as we get closer, and I'll be sure to send that via email. And thank you to Commissioner Cribbs, who alerted me to a problem that just happened, I guess this morning or afternoon at the Rinconada Pool. The chemical controller that manages the chemistry for the lap pool failed today. We're working on a replacement for the controller. They don't have a lot of information right now. I hope to have more tomorrow. And they said they'll send an update midday with more information. They also mentioned in the meantime, you can swim at Burgess Pool until the controller is fixed. And you can freeze your lap membership by logging into your account or emailing the customer service at info@paloaltoswim.com. And Chair, that concludes the department report.
Thank you, Darren. Do any commissioners have follow-up questions for staff? No, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I've got one. Thanks, Darren, for your report. On the soccer replacement project, has that already been, I guess, posted for responses? You
mean the
mentioned
bids?
that you're looking for the results to be back by the 13th of August. So I'm assuming you've already posted that information?
The RFI is going out soon. It's not yet. The request for information. The bid went out. We only got the one, and now we're going the RFI route. So it should be published very soon.
Okay, and that's going to give you enough time to receive input, evaluate, and so forth?
I hope so. We've been in touch with some vendors to say, we'll be sending this out. Can you please respond? But we'll see.
And also tapping into the, you mentioned that Commissioner Cribbs had indicated about the pool. Is that something that's under periodic maintenance? So those things don't sort of pop up and surprise you? And if so, is the pool going to be out of commission for a while or what?
Yeah, it will be out of commission. I don't know for how long. I've worked for the city for quite some time and I can't remember this happening. Been here 23 years and this is the first I've heard of it. It could have happened. I wasn't there or didn't come across my plate, but this seems rare. We do have regular maintenance for that kind of thing, both with the city and through Team Sheeper, keeping an eye on that. So I don't know what to tell you.
So it's closed. The pool is closed.
Pool is
now?
closed.
Okay. So we don't have a time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I found out 20 minutes ago. So I will, as soon as I've got more, I will let you know. But they say midday tomorrow. And what I'll do is just make sure we send an email to the full commission.
Okay. And I imagine there'll be some kind of communications going out to the public on that?
I think that's how we found out is it must have been an update to swimmers on their email to pool.
Okay.
I see. Yeah. But I think once we get this information, we'll be spreading it a little bit wider. We'll go through our communications officer and have them spread it a little bit more broadly.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Just quick follow-up on the pool. Will the website be updated with the closed status for anybody who happens to be looking there?
I'll check in with them and make sure.
Thank you. And I just wanted to follow up on the Coverly Gym closure as well. Last month, Councilmember Du Bois had asked that the city council be notified with more detail about the status of the gym closure and the impact. City council will be returning from their break. On Monday will be their first meeting back. And with the updated information that Darren provided today, I will be sending a letter to city council and I will plan to speak during oral communications on Monday to just update city council and make sure they're aware of the status.
One quick. So going back to the Coverly Gym. I think we had received kind of an estimate of what the repair was going to be. I mean, if there's all these, I mean, so if you actually had someone come out and take a look at that to give kind of a ballpark, is that where that?
I'd say they've had fairly extensive investigation by subcontractors to give guidance on that. I don't know that they've got an estimate that they can share at this time. So I think they're expecting more information and still looking that over, but I don't have any numbers.
Okay, so we really don't know what the overall cost is going to be.
Yeah, they don't have the final numbers
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
But I expect it soon, from what I hear. This is largely led by Public Works, so I'm beholden to them for information and getting it secondhand, but trying to keep up to date and keep you up to date as well.
Okay, and that's a partnership with the Palo Alto School District, so the city's working.
Well, it'll have to be, I think.
Who takes the lead on that, I guess?
Yeah, to be determined. And that's part of the uncertainty is, the information is just coming in. It's not all in yet. And we've got to have that conversation with PUSD.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Darren, thank you for the valuable information you've shared with us. We're now ready to move on to our first business item, and that's the ad hoc committees and liaison reports and assignments. Would someone like to start would start by providing an update from their ad hocs that they're involved with? We're looking for ad hoc updates and status. That's correct. And if there's anything, if there's anything on the agenda, we don't need to talk about that.
Since we're on the agenda with the funding opportunities, we'll just wait until then. And I think the same for the recreation projects.
Great. Nellis?
Yeah, I don't have anything as well. I think we've kind of discussed what's happening with the fields as far as the work that's being done on that. We just need to stay on top of what's happening with the cleanup and how often and whether or not the weekly cleanup is actually working, because I guess the longer that goes out, I mean, the longer that happens or is out there, the more potential it is for someone getting hurt, I suppose. Yeah.
Someone else like to speak? Andy?
I'll just get to the dog park item for that one. On the courts, we're just meeting with staff next week about some hours information, and nothing major from the school at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Connie, you want to?
We're making progress on the eBike and other conveyance, electronic conveyance, mobility devices. And I hope we'll have something to share soon. Basically, we separated open space from other parks and looked at different directions for those categories. So, and looked at different bike classes of bicycles, at ADA requirements, and at how do you define different types of trails. So we're making progress.
Right, and what we recently were looking for applicable references in the comprehensive plan, in the parks master plan, and in the community code. And we're clarifying the scope and goals and looking to come to the commission for discussion soon. Joy?
I'm gonna wait till we talk about the funding.
Great. A couple other quick updates. Park dedication ad hoc is going to meet early next week, or early next month, excuse me, and we hope to get to the commission with a discussion or recommendation in the next month or two. The website updates are continuing in progress and it's close to wrapped up. On the urban forestry side, the tree ordinance update to Title VIII, which City Council adopted, is now in effect. And staff is working to release the associated updates to a new tree and landscape technical manual. And if anyone has anything else to add, now's a good time. Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay, we're now ready to move on to our next business item, which is the skate park project. Darren?
Chair, I am sorry, I did not understand you wanted the liaison reports. So I have a couple, if I might.
I'm sorry,
please.
let's back up and get the
Thank you.
reports.
In terms of aquatics and Tim Sheeper, he says that Open Swim has begun to resemble pre-pandemic operations. Weekends are busy and active, both the big pool and the little pool, with the diving boards and the shallow areas as well. So he's happy to see the community returning to the pool for family recreation. He started group youth swim lessons, which pleases me a lot. This is the last piece of his aquatic puzzle that he's been working on. And he did another in-depth analysis of lap swim costs in response to especially seniors who are concerned about the increase in the lack of discounts for senior residents. And says that now he's able to demonstrate Rinconada has the highest availability of lap swimming opportunities and also is one of the lowest cost options in the area. So he's pleased about that. And anecdotally, I asked a friend of mine who swims at Rinconada, who's a senior, and he said, I love the cost. So it just depends. So that's Tim. And then may I go on?
Please.
This is the Youth Council is not in session right now, but they will be in session and they have the applications are out right now for people who want to join. They're working really hard on the marketing in response to the council's question when the Youth Council came to give a report. The council is concerned that we have mostly students from Castellea, which is great to have their participation, but I think everybody would like to see students from all the high schools participating and a good gender balance as well. So they're working on that. They've got applications out on social media. And he also, our coordinator, Christopher, also chairs the youth counseling program for summer camps. And he thinks that they might be able to assist finding youth council potential people. So it sounded like things are in the works and they're working on making progress. My last one is the funding partners, and we have been in touch with Roger Smith and the Friends of the Parks, and they're standing by to open buckets to put money in for the skate park once that gets approved, and we'll talk about that later tonight, but also other buckets for people who want to contribute to some specific things in the park. So they actually have a bucket for the dog parks, for Foothills Nature Preserve, for pickleball, for Cubberley Track, and for the general fund. So I think that's very encouraging. And special thanks to past Commissioner David Moss, who has implemented a lot of these ideas as he's left the commission and gone to being a board member of the Friends of the Palo Alto Parks. Finally, I did speak to the head of the Recreation Foundation today, and they are very conscious of the activities that have had to be curtailed because of the COVID, and they are continuing to look for family-friendly, safe activities that they can fund, like the movie nights that are happening right now. That's it.
Thank you, Ann. I have a quick question on the first thing you were talking about, the Sheeper report. And I think I heard you say that Rinconada pool usage is getting back close to pre-pandemic use,
That's what he said,
pre-pandemic
yeah.
levels. And so are the number of group lessons similar to pre-pandemic levels?
He
Because
wasn't specific about that, but we can talk about that the next time. They're just about starting And as you remember, a lot of the lessons were directed to his summer swim camps. And now I think what they're doing is opening group lessons.
Okay.
All good.
Good. I'm interested in understanding the details. It seems like if they're close to pre-pandemic levels, that would be hard to do without having a lot of group lessons active in place.
Yep.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to share any liaison updates before we move on? Okay, thank you. Now we're ready to move on to the skate park project. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Darren Anderson with Community Services Department. With me is Peter Jensen, Landscape Architect with Public Works Engineering. And we're here to discuss and collect your feedback regarding adding a new skate park. City Council on April 12th.
Excuse me, Darren, if I could just interrupt for just a moment. Just like to make a quick announcement. If there's any members of the public who would like to speak to the skate park item, if you're online, you can raise your hand via Zoom and we'll give you an opportunity to speak after the staff report. Thank you. Sorry about that, Darren.
No problem. On April 12th, 2021, City Council referred a proposal for a new skate park to the Parks and Recreation Commission to evaluate the need for a skate park, identify a suitable location, and prioritize a skate park facility within the Parks, Trails, Natural Open Space, and Recreation Master Plan. I should note that this initiative started with Sam Kaplinski, a local high school student, and his friends and colleagues, and they began advocating for a new skate park in early 2021. On April 27th, 2021, the Parks and Rec Commission formed a skate park ad hoc committee. And the staff and the ad hoc committee and the stakeholder group, Sam and his colleagues and some other skate park enthusiasts, have met numerous times over the last year to work on the 3 tasks that council assigned to the Parks and Rec Commission. I'll provide a little background on our existing skate bowl at Greer Park. This was built in 1990. It has a historical significance in Northern California state skate community, as it's one of the oldest skate bowls on the West Coast. The bowl and the surrounding paving is approximately 6,000 square feet. And the existing skate bowl is still beloved by many in the skateboarding community. However, the sport of skateboarding has evolved and grown in ways that require new styles of skate parks. The ad hoc committee and staff and that skateboarding community agree that a new inclusive skate park would be a very valuable asset to our community, and it would both benefit children and adults who are interested in skating. The only skate park we've got in Palo Alto is that existing one at the Greer Bowl. And while it remains popular, again, skateboarding has evolved, and there are new styles and new skate parks to meet those styles, like street style, for example, and having transitions features that support skaters of all different abilities and skills. Almost 2,000 people signed a petition asking for a new skate park. And many other cities on the peninsula, around the country, in fact, around the world, have added new skate parks to provide safe and supportive environments for this growing sport. Not having enough skate parks can lead people to drive really far distances to find a skate park to meet their needs, or many skate in the street, sometimes trespassing on private property or in an unsafe environment. Skateboarding did make its Olympic debut at the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo, and interest and participation is likely to continue. The ad hoc committee and staff and stakeholder group analyzed Palo Alto's parks and city-owned land to find a suitable location for this new skate park. And some of the key features that were desired include having at least 12,000 to 15,000 square feet. This was a specific request from that Sam Kaplinski and his group. A location that minimizes impact to neighbors as best as possible, has available restroom access, adequate parking, safe biking access, and avoids displacing other park use by targeting underutilized sections of parks. There were a number of different locations that were looked at, including the Rinconada Park existing skate bowl. Fortunately, that's only 8,000 square feet, so not nearly big enough. It's also heavily used, that particular skate bowl, for different activities like Tai Chi. We looked at Robles Park, which has an existing skate bowl. And when I say skate bowl, I mean like 1950s roller skating style. Again, that Robles Park is only 6,800 square feet. Again, it's heavily used for other activities, and it's also very close to neighboring homes. We looked at the Briones Park basketball court, the adjacent grass area, again, squeezing as much space as we could without dominating the rest of Briones. Only could come up with 8,000 square feet, so not enough. And again, too close to homes where we're in just right next to their back doors, basically. We looked at an underdeveloped area of the Baylands Athletic Center. It's a small piece of property there where there's 9,000 square feet. There's nothing on it, and it looked really promising because there wouldn't be noise issues. However, it's very remote, and there's not good bicycle access to it, and it's pretty far away from the nearest restroom. And lastly, we looked at Seal Park, where there was some fairly large area that's not heavily used, about 14,000 square feet. But again, it was right up next to homes, which made it challenging. We already get complaints from neighbors about the noise from the playing fields at that location. So each of those locations has challenges, whether it's insufficient space, displacing existing park use, or close proximity to neighbors, which led us to our preferred alternative, which is the area adjacent to the Greer Park Skate Bowl that doesn't impact other uses. It has a restroom, it has a parking lot, and there is good bicycle access to that park. That existing skate bowl is about 6,000 square feet, including the paving. And the new skate park area, that's the area around it you see in the dotted lines, not including the existing bowl, there's 22,000 square feet. So the combined area for skating, if we were to choose this spot and build a new skate park around the existing, would be 28,462 square feet. Per the feedback from the skaters, we propose making no changes to the existing skate bowl. Again, I mentioned it was beloved. We propose using the surrounding underutilized grass area around the perimeter of the existing to expand that skate bowl area. The fence line of the skate park could be moved to the dashed lines that you see in the image, and the expanded fence line can be kept out of the adjacent soccer fields from impacting them. On June 15th, 2022, staff held a virtual community meeting to connect feedback regarding this new skate park in this particular location. 21 people participated in the meeting, and there was broad support for this proposed location. Participants said they appreciated the process so far and liked that staff's working closely with the skateboarding community. They encouraged us to continue working closely with them. They said in their experience in the past, as soon as you deviate from including them in the process, it usually goes off track and there are problems. So staff took note of that. There were several comments again on the importance of preserving that existing skate bowl. There was a question about funding for the project. The question was, will the city be contributing towards the cost of this? Staff explained at this time it's intended to be community funded, so it would not have city funds towards it. That's also what was originally proposed from Sam and his group when they originally petitioned city council about this idea. There were also some interesting comments from several skate park advocates who mentioned skate parks don't have a standard size. The question, I think, was from another participant in the meeting saying, is this big enough? And they said, well, there isn't a standard size. It's really about maximizing the use and making good flow with the size that you've got. And they seemed to think that the space at Greer was more than adequate. And that third task from council was to prioritize the skate park facility within the Parks, Trails, Natural Open Space, and Recreation Master Plan. In working with the ad hoc, this is a challenging one because that's an enormous document. There are a number of important, great projects within there. And the ad hoc committee acknowledged just that there are numerous important projects and programs in the plan, and they require staff resources and funding as well. But given the high level of community interest in having a new skate park, the growth of skateboarding and the benefits and well-being to youth, the ad hoc committee believes a new skate park would be one of the highest priority projects identified in the Parks Master Plan. The ad hoc also noted that the funding for this new skate park is proposed to come from community, so it would not be in competition with general funds for other city projects. However, designing and constructing a new skate park will require staff time, even if it is fully funded with outside dollars. There would be a significant impact to staff in helping manage that project and process. The Friends of Palo Alto Parks have agreed to serve as the fundraising organization for a new skate park, and the fundraising can begin once City Council approves that this project could move forward. The next steps, pending how it goes tonight, would be that staff would return next month to the Parks and Rec Commission with a recommendation to council. And in August, we would bring that to, in October, we'd bring that to city council. And if city council approved of it, they could begin fundraising for the project. And Chair, that concludes the staff presentation. Let me just pause just for a second to see if my colleague Peter had anything to cover that I may have missed. Peter's been heavily involved in this project and really helpful.
No, Dan, I think you covered all the bases really well.
Thanks.
Thank you, Darren and Peter. Before we go to comments from members of the public, are there any commissioners with clarifying questions? We'll get to our comments after we hear from the public.
I have some questions, but I'll wait till the public comments and then I would ask my questions. Thank you.
Ellis?
I think this is a clarifying question, not to let me know. As far as the staff time, at what point does that wrap up? I mean, there's always involvement, but if the project kicks off and, if it starts in 2023 and as construction starts, trying to, how much time, I guess, and how many people would be involved in that project itself?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a challenging one for me to answer. I looked at a couple different examples of projects. They're not quite apples to apples like the JMZ. It's a much bigger project, but I just talked to one of my colleagues, John Aiken, who's the director of the museum and zoo. And again, this one was predominantly funded by a private organization, but John's involvement was from very early on, conceptual all the way through completion. And there were times, I don't know exactly at what point it kicked in, but it was extremely heavy in terms of his staff time. There were also many other staff involved in this, in conversations ranging from design, implications to adjacent areas, planning and the funding, and then the relationship with the funding organization that involved, I know, directors from different departments. I was involved in that project quite a bit. Peter Jensen was. So I think to a lesser degree, this would be similar, that you probably have multiple departments involved, certainly CSD and my team, certainly Peter Jensen, and probably a few others, including legal, as we develop a partnership with however this ends up getting organized and managed. And then to the degree that I'm anticipating for a project like this, it would probably fall on staff to run the program, as opposed to them raising enough money to hire a project manager. My hunch is it would not go that way. It would probably come to staff, but I don't know yet.
Sorry, you just went to mute.
What CEQA documents do you expect for this and what is the timeline for that?
Yeah, great question, Councilmember Kleinhaus. I think I'll have to consult with planning to understand a little bit more. And I mean, I just kind of want to see, do we have the right spot? And then that will help guide the next questions, which will be the planning to say, what do we do with this and what's required? What's the timeframes? What are the costs? That's another cost and timeframe, is to do CEQA analysis for that.
One other question. What is it looks like there's some trees on the, where the expansion is. Can you tell me what trees those are?
There are, they're right on the edge of where the new fence would go. I want to say one's pepper, but I'm not sure. We haven't done an analysis yet, unless Peter happens to know, but I don't think we've looked that closely at it yet.
Darren, can you flash the
Yes.
presentation again, just the area?
Coming up.
Oh yeah, those are tough. Let me, I'll take a look at Google Earth here in a second, but you guys can continue. If I figure out what they are, I'll say something.
Thanks, Peter.
Any more clarifying questions before we go to the public?
Yeah, I'm just going to ask one more. You mentioned that the funding would not include a project manager. Why would you not consider that? I guess it would that kind of, I guess, subtract some of the time that staff would have to be involved?
It would, and I think it would be beneficial from the city side. I guess I was thinking more along the lines of really wanting to support this project and getting it done in a timely manner. The ad hoc and staff have been discussing and concerned that the more burden we place upon the fundraising efforts, the less likely this happens in the time span when the people who are advocating for this get to actually use it. It's not saying that they couldn't do it. Maybe they get a big donations that could support something like that. But and it's really ultimately council's call on how much staff time they want to allocate. But I just thought it might be a nice city contribution in terms of staff support.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the members of the public now, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have one in person and 3 hands raised online. We're going to start with our in-person, Frank.
Thank you. And you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And if you're repeating things that others have said before you, you can go ahead and just reference that to keep us moving. Thank you.
Frank, you have 3 minutes.
Other commissioners, thank you for having me here tonight. I live at 3017 Greer Road. That's about 2 blocks from the park, and I go to the park numerous times. I lived there when the original skateboard park was installed, and what I discovered is it made the park a safer park. A busy park is a safe park, and it brought in swarms of skateboarders that used the facility for what it was intended. And for once, the restroom was used for its intended purpose and not for something else. However, the last time I walked by that skateboard facility, it was completely empty, not a soul around. Even though the one in Menlo Park has many, many skateboarders. So I would like to bring some activity back to Palo Alto so that it's in my neighborhood and it makes my neighboring park a safe park. That's what I would like to have, and that's what I ask of the commission.
Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to come and say like how grateful I am to have all the support and of this project, and it's been really great to work with the whole skate park ad hoc and Darren, and I hope to continue working closely with you guys to get this done. So yeah, and
excuse me, could you please introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, I'm Sam.
Thank you.
I've been working on this project for a while, and it's great to see that it's moving forward. So yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Sam. Our next speaker is going to be Mark Whiteley. Mark, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thanks for having me. I am here just to speak generally in support of the park project as a longtime Palo Alto resident and a lifetime skateboarder. Like Sam, I was in high school when the original Greer Park was built, and I've watched its legacy grow. And I do want to emphasize that it's wonderful that there's been support to keep the existing park intact. It is still of some international significance, and it's wonderful that it can continue to live on in its current shape while also having the park grow and adapt to meet the needs of more modern skateboarding. So that's exciting to be considering. Sam has done a good job of reaching out to the community at large and doing his due diligence in getting information and people involved and connecting people with the city. So I think Palo Alto is in a unique position to be able to have a skate park that can both honor and respect a park that is very unique and of significance still, while also adapting to a newer generation's needs. And as the previous speaker said, hopefully bring back some better use of the existing park with a broader selection of people who will be interested to come and use it. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mark. Jason, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Jason Strubing, like Mark Whiteley, lifelong skateboarder. Grew up in Santa Cruz and came over to Skate Greer when it first got built in the 90s. And I congratulate you guys for coming to the decision to keep that as a park. I know there was some previous talk about getting out with the old, in with the new. The evolution of skateboarding has definitely been accelerated over the last 20 years. And there is still people who enjoy the old one, just not as many that will enjoy the new. I think that the generous footprint that you have there is more than enough to keep all parties happy. It's great that you guys have been like really listening to the skate community. That's going to be key in this success. I had a couple of questions regarding the community funded portion of it. I'm currently working with the community of Santa Cruz on a very similar project, actually the same builder, Mr. Ken Wormhout, who had originally built the Santa Cruz Park, Derby Park, also built the original Palo Alto Park. And we are adding an addition to Derby, which is going to be community funded. And with that, there's a lot of advantages to be able to cut costs and not have to go through the traditional city process when it comes to going out to bid, et cetera. I'm wondering if we'll be held to that same constraint as if it was city funded, or could we kind of cut corners and get donations on materials and things like that that are kind of a little more untraditional in a city funded project. So that is something that I'm totally welcome. I'm happy to share my experiences with the Santa Cruz project because it will kind of mirror, hopefully, and reflect what we can do here. But we're soliciting concrete donors, material donors for rebar, and a lot of people are very interested in being involved in the project. But again, I congratulate you for coming to this conclusion here, and it looks like a big shoe, and I think it'll fit well. That's all. Good night. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jason. Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call on members of the ad hoc to start off, give them an opportunity to speak to the project.
Jeff, do you want to go now?
First of all, I just want to thank Sam Kaplinski for getting this project started and for, when he was a sophomore in high school, and the civic engagement he showed is something that is really important for our city. And it's interesting because Roger Smith has come before us a couple times and spoke to us about the parks and people getting involved. And it seems that a lot of people who are involved, it tends to be a little bit of an older generation. And so to see some younger people involved is, I think, a really great sign for our city. And hopefully it's something that other youth will hear about in terms of their ability to make change. And so really, I'm very complimentary of Sam and his follow-up and his organizational skills to try to push this project forward. It's a very exciting project, and it's gone in some ways, certainly we have a long ways to go, but to get where we are as quickly as we have, I think is a very positive sign. And I really want to thank Darren and Peter, especially the whole staff, but Darren and Peter for all the work that they have done with this, their participation in the community meetings, their organization, and all of that is what you're seeing right now. So I'm very excited to see this project move forward. And similar, I share what our speaker, or in-person speaker, talked about wanting to see people back in the park and how a busy park is a safer park and trying to get people back to the bowl. When this project initially started, I was someone who looked at the older bowl and the fact that it has not been used very much, and there's a lot of spray paint on it, and we were trying to figure out if we could refinish it. But I was someone who thought let's put an entirely new project in there. But in listening to the skate community, there was a lot of passion for the history of the old bowl and what that stood for. And it seems that that's the way forward in order to bring the skate park community together, and especially with their community funding. That's going to be a very important piece with what we're doing. If Peter or Darren, perhaps you guys could speak to the potential impacts on existing park users of that current space of what will be or our proposed footprint. I think that would also be good for people to hear. And so if one of you could talk a little bit about that and as that helped us choose that area and how it's currently used.
Yeah, I'll take a attempt at answering that. And Peter, you can join in right after I finish. But when we were asked by the skaters, what would make this have the smoothest transition into actually happening? Because you can choose really challenging spots that perhaps maybe provide more opportunities for design, but there are so many obstacles in the way, either in existing use. For example, there's adjacent soccer, or to the right of the screen, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this is the phase 4 area of Grove Park. There were a lot of neighborhood support for taking that and finishing the park because it was undeveloped, I think in 2015. They finally finished it, built that area out, and it's named after some residents who had advocated, the Scott family. So it's named Scott Meadow. And what we tried to do was not impact the soccer fields at all, not impact phase 4, so that there could still be some passive areas, because the rest of the park is predominantly playing field for the most part, or athletic courts or playgrounds. So there wasn't a lot left of that. And so there's trying not to infringe on almost any use and trying to use the dead space or low use space around it, I should say. And that was the idea. Anything in addition to that, Peter, that I'm missing?
No, I think that the square footage is a little bit larger than is given to the standard skate parks that we're talking about, but that's just because that around the edge of the old skate bowl, there is a transition or a slope that goes down that is going to require some finessing. So there's going to be some space in there that's probably going to be given over to planting or walls or whatever it's going to be. So as far as construction goes, fencing the area off, there should be really no impact as whatever the scale of construction is to the overall use of the park either. So.
Okay, thank you very much. I will end my comments there and pass this along to the other members of the ad hoc, but just really want to compliment the process that we've been able to pursue so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. That
Thank you.
was all very well said, and I agree with all of it. It's terrific. I want to commend Sam and his group, because when they started out with our first meetings, there was not consensus and there was not agreement about what to do with the old bowl, whether to keep it or not. And Sam, through his leadership and the rest of the skating community, came together and with Darren's good advice, we're able to bring the plan to us so that we can approve of it and then it can go on to council. So I really think that's great. As a sort of a side note, I have a very fond spot in my heart for the skate bowl because I was city staff at the recreation department when the original skate park opened back in 1991, and had a really good time with the skaters opening it and watching the programming part of it. So I really want to see this move on, and I was particularly excited that we were able to keep the historical bowl. I wanted to say too that I think there are a lot of resources in the skating community who would like to participate in helping with the information and ideas. And I would really encourage all of us to take advantage of that. I'm excited that the skating community has taken this on as a public-private or a private-public partnership. And I think it really bodes well for the future that Sam and his group are doing this. The one thing that I would say about that is that Sam was a sophomore when he started. That was 2 years ago as he started the process. I believe it was November when we got this word, Darren. And so I would love to see it accelerate a little bit to that point, Darren. Is it possible for us to get to the council in September, or is that space already taken? Just because the sooner we can get the council to approve, the sooner the skaters can raise money. And as soon as we have money, we can make a great start.
I can't guarantee it, but I'll do my very best.
That would be great. And if there's anything that the ad hoc can do to accelerate that, or anything, we would appreciate that. So again, kudos to everybody involved. I think it's really going to be great.
And is there another member of the ad hoc who would like to speak?
Can I speak?
Is there a number, are there three people on the ad hoc?
Yeah, Joy, who just joined us after most of this has taken place.
I joined the funding, not the skate park one. But I can go on and ask my question. I appreciate what city staff did in, carrying out due diligence in looking for, considering other locations before finalizing to pick Grove Park. One of your slides, you wrote something about inclusive. So I wanted to confirm what features qualify the potential of the new skate park for being inclusive, because I started to do a lot of work on DEI, and I really want to know what the inclusive features we're targeting for is. Thank you.
And in this sense, what we've been talking so far about inclusive is inclusive of skaters of many different skills, abilities, ages, and experience, I suppose. So the Old Bowl, I think, would be an example where you wouldn't have someone who's brand new to skating coming out and trying to skate that bowl. It's just too advanced for them, especially in its current condition. Whereas with the new one, I think there's an opportunity, if I understood the skaters, and what my intention is so far is let the skaters do all the design. Let's let them pick out how this would work. They know the principles we're trying to achieve, that this is something everyone could use, and they can help find a way to make that work. But that's what Sam and some of the other folks that were involved said that they could do, is have elements that were good for younger folks in one part, more experienced folks in a different, so that it's complementary.
Thank you. Anything else, Joy?
No, thank you.
Shani?
Thank you. It seems like a great public advocacy and participation that brought a good process and led to a good project in the right location. So thank you. I'm happy to support this. But as always, I would encourage staff to look for places at the edges to plant trees and create habitat. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
What a fun project. And again, just huge compliments to everybody involved, from community volunteers, neighbors for showing up, city council for providing direction and prioritization. It seems like a really great community dialogue, and it really is just a case study for how community engagement should be done. So just extra compliments there. I have maybe kind of a dumb question about maintenance costs and whether, if that, I mean, I don't know if that's a large portion of costs for the city in the past for this existing bowl, what the delta would be for the new bowl, and if the inclusive features and different features would be more costly, and if that maintenance cost is intended to be privately funded as well, or if that's something that the city would take on moving forward.
Yeah, not a bad question at all. I think it's really intelligent. And I can say for the existing bowl, it has not been burdensome in terms of annual maintenance. It's been very little. In the beginning, I think it was predominantly trying to address the graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, because of how quickly it was re-graffitied, we stopped. And there's additional reasons for not doing graffiti removal is because there's the potential of damaging the concrete more. So it's not that we've washed our hands completely. It's that we think we'll do more harm than good by coming in. I'd say that's the bulk of the maintenance that was there. Then it's routine cleaning, which is no more of a burden than it is for a picnic area or anything else.
Okay.
Just getting it, making sure there's no hazards. Every once in a while, there'd be something strange in there, like maybe it's broken glass, or sometimes a little more strange, like a sofa. Someone's brought in, sitting there, staff come in and remove it. But that happens elsewhere in the park too. The good question also is, what about the new materials that get added? We talked a little bit about that. We're way before design, of course, but the city will have some input on things like that we want to make sure that if we're taking it on in terms of the lifetime of the skate bowl for maintenance and eventually replacement, that we're choosing things that last long. Everyone I talked to so far in the skateboarding community really supported that. They wanted the most robust, bulletproof type of material equipment that they could put in there. And I really support that. I think that's a smart way of doing it. I also confess that I don't have a great deal of experience in that. I have a lot to learn as we start the design process. But to the public commenter's point that we've got another city who we've already reached out to find out what they did with their existing skate park. That was Derby Park. And it was very comparable, about the same age, about the same condition, and they had to do some renovations. So we picked their brains, we talked to them and learned a little bit. I think we'll do the same, just be part of that whole conversation. What are you going through? How are you making decisions about longevity of materials, design, all that kind of thing? So I'm hoping we get to learn quite a bit from them.
Okay, so it hasn't been decided that the city will take over, that will be responsible for funding maintenance costs, but that is a possibility.
I think it's
Okay.
likely.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Great, thank you.
Commissioner Freeman.
Yeah, thank you. And I actually attended I think it was a Zoom call of the 15th of June, and I was blown away by the enthusiasm for all the and the support and an excellent presentation. So it's really great to actually see something that the rest of the community will benefit from. And just looking forward to giving full support to this particular project. One question is, and I think this was mentioned in that June call. I don't know if it's mentioned here, but will the existing park, let's say once construction starts, what's the impact as far as, will that be sort of not available for usage, and if so, for how long a period of time will that take place?
Yeah, it will definitely be closed when we're working on the surrounding area. And I think it may be an opportunity for some maintenance on that too. Maybe it's spot repairs, maybe it's something else, but I would anticipate it's definitely closed while we're working on the surrounding area. For the length of time, I think Peter might have had some guesses on how long we could anticipate, but I think it was just a range. Any ideas on that, Peter, for construction?
Well, again, it's really dependent upon the plan and how extensive the plan is. Developing the entire area around the skate bowl would definitely be the one that has the highest fee, of course, to that. And that's just mostly about fundraising. And if that was the case, then yes, probably the old skate bowl would be closed just because of the proximity of work around it. However, though, if it's a project done in phases, or if it felt that there was a smaller and one, the side to the right was basically developed, then perhaps the old skateboard bowl could stay open during construction. So it's really determined upon what really the scope of work is out there. I would say if you develop the entire area around it, the work would take 9 months to a year probably to complete.
Yeah, I also think that this will probably be one of those projects that a lot of other cities will want to be involved and know how we did it. And it's going to be interesting to see how you're going to handle all of the new skaters coming into Premier Skateboard Park. But definitely something that I think we're going to be, it's going to really benefit the city and the stakeholders. So thank you. Thank you for the good job you guys have done.
Thanks very much.
I want to thank staff and the ad hoc and the community members for bringing this project to us. It is very exciting, as a number of commissioners have mentioned. I agree. It's great to see the community coming together and working productively on a project on all aspects and all sides of it. I have a number of questions. I'm generally supportive of this, but I just have a number of questions to want to get through. What do you anticipate the most popular usage times would be for this skate park, and probably have data from other skate parks to understand that? And that.
Well, I don't know if Sam's still on the call, but I think he'd probably be best equipped to answer that one better than I, for sure. Sam, are you still out there? Would you raise your hand on the Zoom if you could chime in?
And while he's working on that, I'll ask some follow-up questions. What are the typical modes of transportation for people who will be visiting the skate park? Where do we expect the users will be coming from? What kind of a range of geographic area?
Yeah, so, okay, I'm still on the call. I was gonna say pretty much, I'd say mid-afternoon and late afternoon is probably the most popular, but there's definitely gonna be usage all morning, like throughout the day until it's dark, and if there's lights, even later than that. Like I know that I drive over to Burgess Park a lot, and pretty much any time of the day there's always activity there, but it's generally the after school hours from like 3 o'clock to sundown. That's the most popular. That's when everybody's generally there.
And how about on weekends?
Oh, weekends it's pretty much all day, like from like 8 in the morning when people are early birds and want to get a morning session in, just all the way till the night. It's pretty much packed day, like day all day.
Right, and people will be traveling via car, bike, board.
Yeah, I'm sure skating, biking, the whole surrounding area is pretty accessible. I know, like when I skated Greer a lot, I would bike over, skate over, and it was pretty doable. So yeah.
Thank you. So my question relates to concerns about parking and restrooms. There's just the one restroom that's not in this vicinity. The peak times for usage of the skate park seem like they will overlap pretty directly with the soccer usage, and particularly on weekends, things can get very busy there. So I think parking is a concern. I'd like to see some staff look into this and provide some information. With regard to the proximity to Greer 5, it's good to hear that you're not planning you're planning to keep the soccer field for use as it is. Probably want to put a high net on the fence between the skate park and the soccer field in the same manner that's done at some other soccer fields. It's not real clear from the drawing, the diagram that we have, where the border is projected to be, and we want to make sure there's enough room for a sideline on the soccer field there. This is already the narrowest soccer field that we have at Greer Park. And so we want to make sure we are able to maintain that. And perhaps you can even put build a bench into the outside wall of the skate park that the soccer field could use at the center of the soccer field. And need to sort out where the goals will get stored, because there's currently stored in the overlap area by the trees there. Let's see. I have questions about the overall size that's being proposed, and Peter was helpful in pointing out and acknowledging that the size is larger than the target area that was suggested by City Council when they gave this item to us to look into. And so City Council proposed an update of 15 to 20,000 square feet. And it's not clear to me if that's the total area that they were looking for, or if that's the additional area that they're looking for. But either way, what we're doing exceeds the directive that we were given. And I don't have a good feel for how big a skate park needs to be. What we're seeing here is a diagram, but is there more information? Are there more diagrams with details about the features and the layout available that makes it easier to understand that this extra space is worth including. For example, the tip of the boot, does that need to be included? Could you cut it off and come in with a Tom Dempsey shoe that cuts off right at the edge of the trees there? Glad somebody got that fixed, Jeff.
Well, I would say that all those questions are really based upon the design process, and we really haven't got there yet. This is basically just to look at the actual envelope that could be part of the skate park.
Thanks.
Some of it may not be developed at all, so we don't know those things yet. But I would say all those details will basically come along in the design process. Mostly, this is just looking at this envelope to say that this is the envelope that could be used as part of construction. Again, if the whole area is used, I don't know. That's just dependent upon fundraising and design process, and those are things to come.
So that's helpful. And part of what I wanted to get to is to clarify what is our goal for this evening and for the PIO recommendation that we would, or for the recommendation that we'd have going to city council. We're talking about the location, but how specific are we getting in our recommendation? It sounds like we're being more general and the details are to be worked out. Is that accurate?
My perspective is that there are three things that we'd be addressing in terms of recommendation to council. It's the three directives: prioritizing it amongst the master plan. Is there an identified need? And is this the right location? And I would look at this in general terms. I mean, there's a reason why it's the scale it is and the way it's drawn is it's way too early. We're not ready to talk about design at all at this point, other than really basic principles that we'd like to have something inclusive of skaters of different abilities. And we want to work around the existing skate bowl. It's pretty much it. And there's a reason we kept to that. It's because council told us to do those three things. So your question's a good one. At what point would we know the exact boundaries? I think it's as you get closer, as Peter said, to design, which is still quite a ways. So that would not be part of the recommendation that I would recommend the PRC move to council. I would just keep it with the three directives.
Great. A couple more quick questions are, I'm assuming that there would be overall, the project would have no net loss of tree canopy. The any trees removed would be replanted. Do we expect that graffiti will be an issue at the new bowl? And are there any mitigation steps we can do in construction to potentially minimize that?
Yeah, we talked about that both with our stakeholder group, Sam and his cohorts, and the original skate park designer's son, who's a skate park designer himself and works actively in that field, to get feedback on what can we do to prevent it. The feeling from the skaters was if you build a really good skate park and you light it and it's filled with people, they're going to protect it. They're going to keep it safe from graffiti. So that was the feedback we got so far. There is a desire for lighting. I lumped that in with other design features that are yet to be discussed. I don't think now's the time to get into that myself, but that was their feedback in terms of how we might abate graffiti is make it great, make it super popular, light it, and then we'll take care of it.
Right. And do we have a feel for what level of user base will be from Palo Alto versus outside of Palo Alto? I'm not suggesting we should be building this exclusively for Palo Alto use. That's not my intent at all, but I think it'd be helpful to understand. I know there's a petition with over 2,000 signatures, but it's not clear at all what the data is from that petition. How many are residents? How many are registered voters? What information included in the petition that wasn't?
I don't think we have that yet. I think we don't have data on what our future use would be if we were to build this. But I think we might be able to probably extrapolate some information from Santa Cruz. I'm sure it's probably comparable. They're drawing regionally, just like we are and will if we build this new one. But to the extent, I don't know. And absent some sort of survey, I think we're reliant on another agency who maybe has, and we could draw some comparisons.
My last comment is hearing about the revered nature of the old bowl. It seems like we should be looking to include a plaque honoring this as part of the project.
You know, the thing I kept hearing, and I heard it a lot, and I heard it with great passion, was do not change a thing. Some people said even the cracks there are like sentimental, important things that I learned to skate around. That's part of my whole experience there. So boy, I just know hands off as much as possible. Keep that thing good. But yeah, if we could find a good place to put in the plaque, maybe just off a little bit, I think that could make sense.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of when the Mitchell Park playground was being upgraded, and there was just a discussion on what to keep and what not to keep, like the old the bearers and the holes you crawl through, and some of the really old dated features that were maintained just because of the love for those within the community. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Some follow-ups.
The skate park obviously would be people, skaters from Palo Alto, but I also think that we all could, and maybe the ad hoc can do this, just to survey other cities, because when we first built the skate park, there were no skate parks, just Santa Cruz in 1991. So it was very, very well used and very popular with lots of visitors from lots of places. But we know now that Burgess Park and Menlo Park has a great skate park. Mountain View does as well, San Jose does, and there are multiple skate parks around. So we probably would get the newness of it for a while, but then more equally distributed throughout the Bay Area. So.
Thank you. It sounds great to be able to do our share and writing a nice future to the skate community to use. Shani? You're on mute. Sorry.
Is the skate park lit? Is there lighting there?
There is one light in there. I wouldn't say it's lit well, but it does have light.
Yeah, so lighting is of great concern to me, as you know, in terms of light pollution and impacts on the environment. So I would encourage the park to close after sunset or when it's dark. And if lighting is to be included, that has to be dim and very, very cautious. And probably shouldn't have any.
So is that something that could be reasonably accomplished, or are these competing priorities here?
You mean follow up on the items discussed?
What Shani has asked about in terms of the lighting?
No, I don't think we're at the point where we'd even dig into it at all. I think that I lump that in with design. So I think we're really just talking about location. And when we get to the point where, which I imagine is still probably a ways off, we would discuss all those things, lighting. And however, when I do check with planning on some of this thing about parking, I'll just bring it up to understand what kind of things are associated with it. So when the time does come to get in the conversation of design, that they have some information to guide them, like, here's the process if you want to do that. Here's some concerns about environmental impacts and impacts on wildlife, et cetera.
Perfect, thank you. Any other comments before we wrap up this item?
Yeah, I'm just interested. This is not an action item tonight, right?
Yes.
So
That's
what's
correct.
going to happen is there's a report written and then we'll do action on that next month. Is
That's
that the
correct. I
plan?
think I might have to do a little bit of homework to answer some of the questions and concerns. And then there'd be a report coming back, I imagine next month, and it would
Great.
be an action item.
Great, good. So, but it sounds like all the commissioners are generally positive about it, right?
Yes.
Good.
And Darren, one other item I forgot to mention, just make sure that we follow up on the outreach to the other Greer Park stakeholders, the field users, and make sure they have an opportunity to perhaps even submit comments to staff before the next meeting if we're coming in for an action item.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone, all the members of the community who've been working so hard on this for such a long time. It's great to see your passion coming through, and great to be moving forward with this as part of the community. We're now ready to move on to the next item, which is the dog park PIO Park Improvement Ordinance. And we have Peter Jensen to present to us.
Yeah, my pleasure, Chair, to introduce Peter. Peter, again, is the landscape architect with Public Works Engineering. He's been extremely helpful, he and some other Public Works Engineering staff, in working on this project. Thanks for being here, Peter.
Thank you, Darren. Peter Jensen, landscape architect for the city of Palo Alto. Here to discuss, like we did last week, the expansion of the Mitchell Park Dog Park. And to hopefully make a recommendation tonight to council to approve the park improvement ordinance that would continue us along the path of expanding the dog park itself.
Sorry, Peter, if I could interrupt you just for a moment and again, encourage any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item to go ahead and raise your hand via Zoom, and you'll have an opportunity to speak after the staff report. Thank you.
My slide thing. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go through some slides. Most of the slides are going to look very familiar from last meeting, but for those of those in the audience and the community that have not had a chance to hear some of this yet, we'll do some recap. Then we'll go through the ordinance and do some question and comments at the end and the motion as well. So again, tonight we're talking about the Mitchell Park Dog Park and expanding the dog park. Again, we do have a limited dog park system in Palo Alto. We would like to be expanding that. That is something that the Parks Master Plan did bring up and is a priority for the City Council, a directive to staff to look at possible ways to expand the system. It also correlates with a ongoing CIP that we have every other year to provide funding for dog park expansions or new dog parks themselves. Tonight we are talking about the Mitchell Park Dog Park, which is the currently the second largest dog park in our dog park system. It's a fairly well-used dog park with a good size. You can see the outline of that dog park here. It is split up between a decomposed granite surface, which is a harder compacted dirt surface, and a grass surface. Currently makes up about 0.56 acres. I think we touched a little bit last time about we'd like to, as far as developing dog parks in the future, the goal is to have them closer to 1 acre in size. That size of dog park is much easier to maintain for dog use. That's where we are kind of with this dog park, is just expanding it some more to get some more space there, providing more space, of course, for the community, but also helping the overall dog park stay put together. The proposed scope of project, of course, would be to expand the existing dog park, create a small dog park that's separate area for smaller dogs, replace the existing 5-foot fence with a new fence, replace the double gates that are there with the same double gate, and then adding a larger gates for vehicle access and maintenance. The addition of seating, of course, maintaining the existing hose bibs that are there, just moving them around to make more sense of them in the spaces. Reconfigure the irrigation, which is very important to maintaining grass in the dog park. Moving the dog park 10 feet away from the creek, which is an easement requirement. So we meet our easement there. Keep the picnic area and the hilltop of the space outside of the fenced area so that the community can use that without accessing the dog park itself. And then changing the grass type in the areas that are outside the dog park to a lower maintenance variety, a no-mow variety, which also reduces air pollution. So the exhibit that we're looking at on the left-hand side is in the pink is the existing dog park. And the image on the right, excuse me, is what we're proposing in the expansion of it. And you can see that the blue area here is the expansion. Of course, we're losing a little bit, moving it away from the creek there, but we are gaining space in that location, as well as the smaller dog park area in that space. And then this is the comparison of the sizes. So by expanding the area, we're capturing another a quarter of acre for the larger dog park area, and then creating another 0.1 acres, which isn't much, but for small dogs, it's a fine size. That's going to basically combine and give us almost a 1 acre dog park area is being proposed now. We did have a community meeting on this May 4th. There was 26 attendees. The group is very supportive of expanding the dog park. Their comments range from providing more seating and more shade, trying to maintain the grass, make the area as big as possible, and also to keep the hill area top and the seating area still open to the community. We also discussed this last week at the Park and Rec Commission meeting. The commission provided some feedback as far as incorporating more trees into the design, reduce the height of the small dog park fence, maintain the two separate dog spaces as it was shown, and also maintain that the hilltop seating area and the picnic area be outside the fenced area of the dog park. These were the goals that we had that we just discussed a minute ago. Again, looking at the dog park expansion. This is an exhibit starting to show the surfacing differences between the dog parks. So the larger dog park would be more grass area, maintaining its decomposed granite. The small dog park would be maintaining the grass in there as well. And then in the low or passive use areas of the hillside, using a no-mow grass, again, to reduce water use and to reduce overall maintenance. From our last discussion with the Parks and Recreation Commission, there was some discussion of trees. We basically put this little exhibit together showing the number of existing trees. There are 21. On this graphic, these green circles that are smaller, that if you can read it, say new tree, those are the proposed 15 new trees set in this area. All native trees, 10 of those being Valley Oak and 5 of those being California sycamores, a mixture of those basically in that area, per our discussion last time at the last meeting. Since the publication of the agenda and the staff report, there are a few topics that have come up. One about the height of the small dog park fence. Last time we discussed it to be 3 feet. The current PIO refers to the small dog park having a 3-foot tall fence. There's some concern from maintenance staff that the 3 feet is too low. That comes from experience with Hoover Dog Park. I guess originally it had a 3-foot tall fence, and it wasn't tall enough even for the smaller dogs, and it had to be raised to 5 feet. So that's something that we can further discuss tonight if we want to make some type of amendment to the PIO language itself, which would just be part of the motion that we have. The other is the fence layout at the top of the slope for the larger dog park. Was discussion with some the PRC members about shifting the fence over so it basically just captured the hillside but maintained the top of the slope outside the fenced area. So you can see the red line here would be that kind of proposed reduction that would just enclose basically the slope of the area to be within the dog park. The older fence is this right here. So basically just maintaining the top of the hillside for more passive recreation and seating, and not having that inside the dog park proper itself. It is about a 1 or 0.1 acre reduction of about 14% of the overall added size. So that's something else that can be discussed further tonight about shifting the fence over and providing that amendment to the motion itself for the park improvement ordinance. The park improvement ordinance itself looks something like this. I think that it was in your package. If you have not seen one yet and you're new to the Parks and Recs Commission, this is something that we do when we work in parks and expand existing areas or change the use of areas. So this would count that we are enclosing some areas that are passive or for passive use, and creating and being the sole use for a dog park now, which would require basically a park improvement ordinance. What the ordinance does, and for your purposes, you actually make a recommendation for the council to approve you don't really actually get to vote to approve the PIO. You make a recommendation to council how they should vote on it. And it basically then also lays out all the modifications to the park that will be taking place. So this is basically the kind of the legal document of the ordinance itself. Just quickly, after this meeting, if it's the desire of the commission to recommend for approval to council, the PIO will go to council for approval. They take a vote on it and either approve it or not. If they do approve it, which we hope that they do, then we have another 30 days basically after that. It has to have a second reading on the consent calendar, and then it is approved. In that time, and actually we've started to work on this already, we are putting the bid package together. So once the PIO is approved by council, we can quickly move forward with sending the plans out to bid, which would then allow us to construct and expand the dog park. So hopefully within the next few months here that we can start some work out there and quickly move on expanding the dog park itself. With that, I will take questions and comments from the commission.
Thank you, Peter. And we'll move forward with clarifying questions in a moment before we see if there's any speakers from the public. I think it's also important to clarify what our options are this evening. We have a PIO in front of us that we're looking to approve. There's a couple of new changes that have been suggested. These changes can be adopted to modify the original staff recommendation to include them. If we feel like we're not ready to make a decision and want to consider this further, we can treat this as a discussion. And if people prefer to vote on a PIO next month, that's an option as well. I just want to make clear that those are the options that are on the table. And Darren, do you have any comments on that? Does that sound accurate to you?
That is accurate. I confirmed with the attorney that you do not have to just vote on the PIO as it stands in the report, that you can make modifications and just say so in your motion.
Okay, thank you. Are there any clarifying questions before we look to see if there's members of the public to speak?
Chair,
And we do have a couple hands.
was there an at places memo that I missed?
Yes, there was an at places memo that was included in an email to us and in the attached agenda.
Oh, okay. Was it part of the agenda?
It was part of the update. It was added to
Then
the
I guess I
agenda.
read it. So thank you.
So it's a separate attachment within the agenda. And perhaps there's some printed copies in the back, but it's essentially talking about the alternate layout that Peter discussed. That's what the at places memo was. Joy. Question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just curious to know why we want to change why we have a new fence line. What prompted that? What was the justification behind it, please?
This was discussion that we had on site this week with Commissioner Chair Greenfield, bringing it up for discussion basically at this meeting. So.
It's based on a consideration after doing a walking tour of the area with Peter and with Commissioner Freeman. And I can, the details of it are included in the at places memo, but I don't know if this is if this is part of a clarifying question, if we should get into it now. I guess so. Essentially considering options and trade-offs of keeping the top of the hill area reserved for people to use rather than the dogs. Noticing that there are shady areas at the top of the hill that people like hanging out in, providing a little bit of solace. It's a unique area within the park. It's the only hilly area. There would still be a lower hilltop area included within the dog park, and there would be sloped area included with the dog park. So it seemed like a consideration.
It's one of those things you have to see to kind of appreciate why there's a need to move that, and that is to, I mean, I think it's still balanced. It's still a good balance, right? Oh, yeah, still a good balance. So, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, please.
So with the movement of the, how much room, I guess, it looks to be kind of narrow. Does it, I mean, there's still, I think you had mentioned that there would be benches or something on that hill or not? I mean, not that you need them, I guess, but.
We have proposed adding seating. It's actually not on the hillside area. It's more down towards the flat portion of it, but.
Okay, so it's inside that's it. The seating is for the inside the dog park.
It's in the inside of the dog park.
Okay, got it. But there's still enough room outside the fence for, people who are maybe picnicking or whatever, because that's a couple of picnic tables there, to be able to sit on the hill and still shade themselves from the sun, so forth.
The fence line now is set on the toe of the slope. So basically the level part that's up there now would be outside the dog park for people to sit on. I can't really comment if it's large enough for people to picnic on. Some areas are thinner. So that I don't know if you could picnic, but you could definitely sit there.
I think, Nellis, are you referring to the seated area that exists at the top of the hill now already? So that was never going to be included as part of the new dog park. So that was always outside of the dog park in the original and in the mod.
Okay.
Right.
Shawnee, do you have a question?
Yeah, can I see the slide of the trees again? And can you explain again what the new trees would be?
The new trees are these smaller green circles. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They would be a mixture of Quercus lobata, the valley oak, and the native California sycamore. Both are native to this area. Most of them are planted up in the NOMO or the passive area. The direction of the sun would be in this direction. So these massing of trees would help to shade basically this part of the playground or the dog park once they got big enough. We did put a few in the dog park itself, but our irrigation water main line runs along the back edge here, and we have a drain line that connects out here. So we tried to position the trees so they would not damage those utilities over time, but still provide shade and habitat along the creek side.
Thank you. The 3 trees above the big circle, aren't there trees there already?
Right here, you mean?
No, the other side. Yeah, above the. Yeah.
There's I don't know if there's trees or shrubs, but most of it is just a large massing of black acacia. So really there is not any significant tree or canopy in this area. So that's why we're basically proposing to plant new trees so we could actually create some canopy there.
Okay, because it looks like there is actually shade there, you see, like the pattern of shade on
right.
the.
We didn't take that massing out. It's only about 20 feet tall. We're proposing trees that get much taller than that and will create a much larger canopy over time.
Okay, thank you. And what about the area along the path on the bottom side of this? There is always people sitting there and it's very sunny.
There's no irrigation in the decomposed granite area along the edge, so there's really nothing to plant along that edge. We can look at them here, but the shade is mostly cast on the pathway. So we try to, again, make shade that's going to be shading this area here in the hottest part of the day. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go to members of the public to hear their comments.
Thank you, Chair. We have 2 hands raised. We will start with McCall. McCall, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Parks and Rec staff and honorable commissioners. I'm the acting president of Palo Alto Dog Owners. I am, of course, in full support of improvements to any existing dog parks in Palo Alto. My members definitely want shade and more adequate seating, and I'm so glad to see the addition of the trees. I hope others who use the park regularly will add more specific comments. I want to address a larger picture as we move on from the last 2 pandemic years into a changed future. Just as 9/11 changed the way we travel forever, we need to contemplate the importance of parks in a totally different way going forward. And I'm sure you've already thought of this, being in Parks and Recreation. Many different groups want and need access to these outdoor spaces now, and Palo Alto has a whole lot of dog owners. The data from Pets in Need suggests a total of over 1,500 or more dog licenses are either added or renewed every year. And that means that's compiling thousands of dogs in our city. For dog owners, the daily chore of taking care of and walking your pets is really enhanced when there is a friendly destination to look forward to. For many, that makes it a highlight of their day. A place to meet up with neighbors and congregate with our dogs outdoors is essential for the mental and physical health of our city's dog owners. I thank you for all the work Peter and Darren have done on this. Really appreciate the improvements to this existing park, and I hope that you can add more parks and more off-leash opportunities in the future. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is John. John, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is John Gislin, and I'm a dog owner in Palo Alto, and I want to second McCall's comments about the importance of parks. I think the design you come up with is quite nice. However, I think you're not following the Parks Master Plan guideline for what your priority should be. That policy in the Parks Master Plan says that the staff should actively pursue adding dedicated fenced dog parks in multiple neighborhoods, equitably distributed between North and South Palo Alto. Today, we have no dog park in North Palo Alto. So for me to go to a dog park, it's about 2.2 miles from my house to the nearest dog park, which is too far for me to walk my old dog there and back and then give her some time to play. So while I think that spending money on dog parks is important, I think it's most important that you create an equitable distribution of dog parks in the city first, before you make improvements to existing dog parks that, to my knowledge, are fully functional. So I know there's been some attempts in the past 18 or 24 months to get a new dog park, but that didn't come to fruition. And during that discussion, I proposed what I call the pocket parks along Palo Alto Avenue near the creek, in part of Timothy Hopkins Creekside Park. Those are small parks that have no playing fields, relatively low usage, and are already fenced on about half the perimeter. I think those would make an excellent choice for a low-cost park that would cover some residents North Palo Alto, but they wouldn't be sufficient for all, but they would cover people who live in downtown North or some Crescent Park residents. So I hope you will table spending this money on improving an existing park and instead put your efforts to building dog parks that will serve the unmet need of North Palo Alto residents and their dogs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes public speakers.
Thanks. Mandy, as the dog park liaison, would you like an opportunity to speak first?
Yes, I just wanted to begin with some background information from staff. So Darren, if I could bug you for a brief history on the dog park efforts in recent years, including Ramos Park, the CIP schedule that every other year, how we're doing so far, and the current status of exploration into new dog parks in North Palo Alto.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Brown. Our last dog park we added was Piers, which we consider in North Palo Alto. The next dog park that we'll be building, new one in a park that doesn't have any, is Bullware Park, We brought that PIO to the commission, was approved, and went to council, that's approved. So now we're just pending last reviews, and eventually that will be constructed. So that will also be in North Palo Alto. We have struggled to find a lot of different opportunities. We haven't stopped looking for more permanent ones, but both Greer and Mitchell, our existing dog parks, have had a number of complaints about being undersized and not having adequate space for smaller dogs. That's why we started looking at this, and it seemed like a path of least resistance in our ability to make it happen. So I would say we have pursued North Palo Alto. We will continue to pursue more dedicated dog parks in certain areas where they make sense. But I'd also like to see if we can expand Greer after we fix and make these improvements at Mitchell. Greer is chronically source of complaints amongst dog owners as being too small. Frequently, we see dogs out in the outfield of the adjacent fields because it's too small. And there is some adjacent landscaped area where maybe we could make that a little bit larger. And I'm interested in exploring that too. We haven't given up hope on the concept that we pitched at Ramos, which is the shared use model, which would be take a given park area and say use a piece of it for a dog off leash area for a certain amount of time. It was not well received at Ramos. We initially thought we had some positive feedback, and then a big outpouring of community output came in saying, this is not the place for this. We don't want that. So we'll have to be really judicious as we search for other opportunities for that. But I think we're still actively looking for all possibilities, fixing existing ones, finding new ones. And I do mean broadly throughout Palo Alto for that, and enhancing our existing and still looking at opportunities for maybe off leash as well.
And we are a bit behind in the CIP dollar spend because we were exploring that path and those dollars were unspent. So we are a little bit behind in doing these projects currently, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And to be honest, given the process, how long it took to find Pierce Park, for example, that was an exhaustive amount of time invested in that. I don't know that we could fully expect it to be every other year we've got an approved place. I think that's an admirable goal, and we should strive for it. But I don't know that necessarily we can bank on each, every other year we've got a new fence, unique dog park. I think we should try, but I wouldn't bank on it.
Okay. And then the last one is in the very north part of Palo Alto where Alma and El Camino meet by the train. That was another location that's currently being explored by staff. I know there's a lot of community partners in that one, but that was a location that staff was evaluating, correct?
I believe so.
Yep.
In addition to El Camino Park itself, yeah, there's a few spots where I think it may be possible.
Okay, so staff is continuing to look for new opportunities in that area. Great.
That's correct.
Yeah, just a couple comments. I mean, I think it's great. It looked great last time you presented it, Peter. So thank you for your work. The tree updates are wonderful, and the visual is excellent to be able to really get a sense of where the shade will be. Especially for those of us who have walked the site. 5-foot fence, that's also a great ad. Appreciate reaching out to maintenance or whoever made that comment. Those little guys can jump. So I think that's probably a great improvement to the plan. I'm not in favor of changing the fence line. I think we should retain it. It's directly in conflict from what was heard at the community meeting, asking to include the slope in the dog park area. I think it comes at too late of a time. We've already had a lot of community meetings and outreach with the original layout. So asking to change the fence line and design at this stage in the game, especially when it wasn't published in the original agenda packet, I think is not very transparent for the community. And so I would be in favor of keeping the larger footprint, especially as the dog park community is already having to compromise by improving an existing dog park rather than being able to add a new dog park access elsewhere in Palo Alto. Thanks.
Thank you. Anne, would you like to speak?
Yes. Only to say that I'm happy that we are expanding and making some improvements at Mitchell Park. I was over there yesterday kind of looking around to see what went where. And the maps I'm looking at are upside down, so my pictures that I took don't fit in my head. So I'm trying to figure out where things are really supposed to go. But I think it's going to be a really nice improvement for all of that. I love it that we've added some more trees on that tree line. I think that is really going to be terrific, because when I was there yesterday, there weren't a lot of places for shade. I do support the really paying attention to North Palo Alto. I feel like for as long as I've been on the commission, we've really tried to find places that were appropriate for dog parks without causing a lot of not grief, but a lot of consternation with neighbors about living close to a dog park and all of that. And so I guess what we just need to do is continue to redouble the efforts and make sure that we're thinking about North Palo Alto, and see if we can possibly find a couple of places to do a pilot program that would be successful, so we could point to those successes. I also wanted to congratulate whoever did the dog park page for the city's website. It's really great to have it there. And I wasn't sure whether you could get to it from the community services or if you had to go to Public Works to try to find it. So that was just a question. Otherwise, Peter, again, a very nice job. I actually would not move the fence either, so.
Chair, just real quick, Javad, were you able to answer the question about the website?
The dog park page that's in reference is found via the Public Works Department. We do not have it linked to community services. It is a fairly new page. So since it's been created, we haven't connected it to community services.
So
we can work on that.
If it could just be duplicated on community services website, I think that would be great, since there's so many dogs in Palo Alto and so much interest.
Yeah, we'll make that a connection
Thank
to the
you.
CSD.
Commissioner Freeman.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent job on the presentation and the fact that this is going to be the expansion of Mitchell Park, but also continuing to look at other parks and sort of respond to the neighborhood needs. I also support definitely looking into what can be done for North Palo Alto. We see a lot of people walking dogs, so there are a lot of dogs in the area, and I agree that that's probably not. It's a long trek to have to go to Mitchell Park and some other areas. So we definitely should spend a lot of effort to look at that and get some community engagement as to how we can actually support dog owners in North Palo Alto. On the size of the, and also I'm glad that we are adding some additional trees, and I'm surprised to see as many, but that's good. And a variety of trees, which one question would be, what's the size of the trees that will be planted, because that determines on how quickly they're going to grow, I guess.
Well, that's always I guess a trickier question. Trees that are planted smaller grow faster. So day one, yes, the impact of the shade that they have will not be as great, but they will create a canopy faster over time. So normally we don't get into planting trees that are of large size. We usually plant a 15 to 24 inch box, which is basically 6 to 8 feet tall and fairly spindly when it's planted. And again, that's done because over the long run, it's been shown that you can grow a lot bigger canopy by growing a smaller tree. It adapts better to its growing environment that way.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that we are adding a large number of trees, and I'm sure that the dog owners appreciate that as well, and will appreciate it more going forward as those trees get taller. And that's But again, I want to congratulate everyone who participated in this and continue the good work moving forward to look at expansion, but also look at other neighborhoods that need to be supported as well for the dogs in their area.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Sure. Thank you for all your work with this. Darren, a quick question. I think it was before I came on the commission, but wasn't Party Park considered? And then, but in North Palo Alto, but then public comment or community meetings ended up tabling that. Is that, am I remembering that correctly?
That is correct. Yeah, we had pitched Party, and then when that was ultimately decided that the opposition was too great, we started looking elsewhere and eventually went to Pierce.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate this design. As far as the fence line goes, I prefer the fence line to be changed. However, I do agree with Commissioner Brown in that I do wonder if changing something at this late date after community meetings and after design, if that's a little bit lack of transparency or overstepping what we're doing. I would prefer to give a little more area to the picnickers and to the other passive use of the park, but I do think that perhaps we should keep the original design as is. But thank you for all your hard work and the trees and the attention to this.
Thank you, Commissioner Oche.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank Peter for an excellent presentation, especially with the trees. And I re-echo what Commissioner Cribbs and Commissioner Freeman talked about as well. For me, I think I only want to confirm how far we've gone with discussions with the Girl Scouts. I know in the last PRC meeting, we talked about fundraising for some amenities. I was hoping we could, see that in the presentation that you shared. I'm not too sure how far we're gone with that, and just wanted to ask about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinhaus.
Thank you. Thank you for including the trees. As someone who lives in that area and has been witnessing and participating in the dog issues in Palo Alto for quite a while, including Party and Ramos and everywhere else, and using this particular park, I still feel that maybe a better place would be where a new park can be created rather than expanding one. But given that that's been so difficult.
Excuse me, Shawnee, could you speak into your mic a little more?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm trying to look at my notes here and talk at the same time, so just one sec. Was there any public outreach to users outside of the dog group users? For example, where the fence would be? Could we put some kind of an example of one of those, orange fences and see how people feel about this new fencing in the park? Especially, I would think the people that come and go from the Magic Bridge and how that would impact the continuity and visibility of the park, and also people that use that little picnic area where I would generally support moving the fence to the toe of the hill because there's people using that site a lot, including people who come to cook their dinner there in that little picnic area and probably don't have a home to cook in. So I'm not sure that having the parks right next to them, the fence is the right place. And so moving it is, I think, a good idea. But I also think that, we didn't ask the non-dog owner, park participants about this use. And I think it's important to ask them. And so last time I asked about it and you said maybe we'll post some signs or something. I haven't seen any.
I would like to respond to that. Actually, the promotion of the community meeting, emails for all the neighborhoods around there were sent out. I believe it's over 1,500 people got an email about it. 100 and something postcards were mailed out for the community around the dog park area. So we did reach out to the community around Mitchell Park and the dog park for people to participate in the community design process. Folks, of course, did participate. There weren't as many people as the dog group, but we did provide the opportunity for that.
Yeah, I still think that putting one of those snow fences so people can see where it goes. So people who are not dog owners and may not even be residents of that neighborhood, it's a regional park. The guy that lives in his truck and comes to cook his dinner in that little picnic area probably did not get a postcard. So
well, the picnic area remains outside of the fenced area, so that
yeah, it is. But if we don't move the fence, then the fence is quite close. The new pattern with the red fence is more respectful of people who use that picnic area, and the one on top that people like to sit and relax in. So I would support the moving that fence the way that is recommended in the package that we're in that place package. In terms of the motion of what to do next, can we bifurcate it and look at the two dog parks separately? The small dog park with fencing that is, and I'm sorry to acknowledge that, as tall as me, makes me uncomfortable. I like to go there. I like to walk on the bridge, go from one place to the other. I like the atmosphere of the park, the way it was designed. So that small dog park is very intrusive to me. And so I can see supporting the larger the expansion, the dog park, if that fence line, provides more buffer for people that are using the park currently. But I have a hard time with that small dog park in that location.
Can I just respond to Commissioner Ocha's comment? Girl Scouts did reach out and they are interested in providing funding for some benches or amenities. That was just their idea, but they are still interested. So additional communication has occurred.
I do apologize, Joy. I was just on mute, so I didn't answer your question, I think, before it went. So yes, staff continues to have discussions with them. I think we are looking at some amenities that would be appropriate to give them guidance on what to raise funds for. I don't know if Darren has anything else to provide.
No, just to echo those same things. I think we're at the beginning of those conversations. It may be that it doesn't happen right away. It might be a little while before we get that in place. I know they intimated additional shade might be something. Shade robust enough to stand up to use in a dog park has to be fairly robust. So it's probably going to be on the more expensive side. And they cautioned me to say, we're largely making this donation money from bake sales. So it's not going to be $5,000. It's going to be, more like 500, which is great. And we really appreciate it. And I think we could find a good way to use it. We just have to be thoughtful and choosing something that's going to hold up, be of good value to the location, and something we can maintain.
Are you finished, Commissioner Flanhouse?
Yeah, it's repeating the question of whether we can split those two.
Commissioner Kleinhaus, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, as the PIO is in the packet, you can deviate from that and modify it. It would just have to be clarified in the motion to say, we'd like to approve this. However, I want to see these following changes.
So I can suggest that we, well, I'm not sure how to do that. Somebody has to help me.
That would be part of making a motion. I want to thank the staff for all the work they've done on the dog park, bringing it to us, the public outreach, the providing the plans, providing the alternate plans. I would like to speak to the alternate plan, and I'll mention that I did make the suggestion to adjust the fence line below the hilltop area when we met last month, and Peter said this is something that could be considered, but there wasn't any follow-up on that. I also had suggested that signage be placed in the hilltop area to notify members of the public about this, because as Commissioner Kleinhaus has mentioned, I'm concerned about the outreach to the public who's not part of the dog park community. I think the dog park community has responded and given us a lot of very valuable input, and that's appreciative. It's always easier to come out and speak in favor of something you're looking to see change. I don't feel like there's sufficient awareness of the people who use the hilltop area that's going to go away. And that's what I was looking for in putting some signage out there, so people would be alerted and have an opportunity to speak this evening. And I believe that didn't happen. That area is used quite frequently. It's a valuable respite for people to get away from the noise of the park in a quieter, more isolated, shady area. It also provides more privacy for the group picnic area that's down below there. As I mentioned before, I think the dog park still has some sloped areas. I do appreciate the concern about making these changes at a late date. I do think, and we've reached out to staff to get some guidance on that. Would it be appropriate to move forward potentially with a change in the PIO based on the App Places memo or not? It sounds like via the letter of the law, we can move forward with that. There's questions regarding the spirit of things. Is it appropriate or not? And I appreciate that those are reasonable questions to ask. I personally will not be supporting the original drawn plan that has the dog park fence line inside, including the top of the hill. I would be in favor of either moving forward with the PIO with the modified plan, or delaying this until next month to potentially do further outreach to the community and have more time for consideration with all the parties involved. So those are my recommendations on what I would support. And I'm interested in moving in hearing from other commissioners, or someone can make a motion on something. Ann?
Just to clarify, your two choices are to either modify the plan or. Okay, sorry. So Jeff, just to clarify, your two choices are either to modify the PIO tonight or to delay until next month.
That's correct. And I'm interested in hearing from staff. Is there any particular urgency to have the PIO approved this month? Obviously, it would set plans back a month. But anything beyond that we might not be aware
I think just public expectation perhaps is probably the primary driver. Maybe there's.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Public expectation that we've communicated with, at the public meeting, that this would be the steps we'd take. And I think there's some expectation that we're going to be moving forward with this. I would not expect, I could be wrong, that it would be next month we'd back if we're doing additional public outreach. I would expect that to be longer than a month before we got public outreach, figured out a new plan, or whatever gets ultimately decided, and bring a new recommendation. I would expect that would take a little bit longer.
So even putting some signage up in the top of the hill area with a QR code saying this would be discussed at the Parks and Rec meeting the following month. That wouldn't be, which is what we were asking for last month. Would you consider that to be sufficient increase in public outreach?
Yeah, I suppose if it was limited to that, it might be an option. I think you're likely to get a fairly small amount of feedback from that kind of effort, but we could look into that as an option.
Would you,
Johnny?
would you also put a sign where the small dog park, like 2 signs, one on top of the hill above the little picnic area and one near the bridge?
Yeah, I think that was part of the original request.
Yeah, that's what we asked for last time, right?
I guess I'd point out one other thing is in that kind of public outreach, not that it's bad, I think that can be very helpful, but it's one way. There's no dialogue, there's no opportunity to say, is this better? You know, would you consider this? What are the pros and cons? It's just sort of unidirectional feedback without the opportunity to really give a lot of explanation either on a sign out in the park. But not that it doesn't have value, it does, but it's not the full solution in terms of me able to bring back to you, here's the feedback we've collected. It's a little more challenging to interpret given that it's one way.
So what I'm envisioning is some notification that goes on a site similar to when a tree is about to get removed, or even some construction is going to be done. It's a sign at the site that people in the vicinity are able to see that some change is going to be made, and they can have a QR code linked to the dog park website, which describes the plan and describes the process and provides people an opportunity to speak at the commission meeting.
Well, technically, we've done that already, so we could do it again. We could have it out there, but I think that your response to having signage at the location is going to be very, very small. And I don't know what the anticipation is of responses that would provide information for the commission to make judgment on, but I would say 15 people max are going to respond to such a thing from our experience with the Parks Master Plan, which was much more larger scale, impactful to the community. We tried that as well, but received very little feedback from QR codes or having people go to a website. So that's up to the commission how they would like to proceed. I just want to set a expectation that there won't be a lot of feedback provided that way. And I don't know if it's really providing you the guidance that you would like to see for making the revision to the plan.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. And when you said that, so
we also had signage at the dog park.
But was there signage? Where was the signage at the dog park? Was it at the?
It was outside the gate, and then there was a sign that was over by the bridge where the small dog park is proposed.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment that I appreciate the community engagement efforts that have been done so far. I agree that a broader community has been reached through the community meeting and postcards. I think just because it's a dog park meeting doesn't mean that only dog park owners or dog owners are going to show up. If there was a playground being developed at a park near my house, I would still show up, even though I'm not hopping on the monkey bars anytime soon. And so I appreciate staff's work done to date. I also would like to make a motion to recommend the city council adopt the park improvement ordinance as in the original packet that was published, not the At Places memo, with the amendment to change the small dog park fence height from 3 feet to 5 feet.
Thank you. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, would you like to speak to your motion further?
I think we've said it all.
Okay. And Nellis, would you like to speak as a seconder?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, what Darren makes a point about, this is something that is out there from a community expectation. I think we want to try and keep on track with that. If we can, you know, make some adjustments as far as, you know, if the fence is a bit contention for not moving this to the next placeholder, then I myself would sort of back off on that one, but it is something that, having looked at that area, I think it's important as far as being able to not take anything, in some ways, I guess we're taking something away from as a certain acreage or so that we're taking away as far as moving the fence. So there's some kind of, I guess, compromise on that. But I support, keeping everything right on the same track that we're on right now and not delay this, because I think, our citizens are so used to having things not, keep that traction moving forward. And I think this is an opportunity to show that we can make a plan and keep moving forward with it, even with some adjustments.
I'll just add that I wanted to say one other thing, that I received notification for the community meeting and outreach 3 times in my email inbox, and that was not including commission specific emails from the department. So that was just from neighborhood groups or various interest groups in the city. And I live nowhere near the park, so.
Thank you. I'd like to make a substitute motion and recommend that we go with the alternate layout with both of the alternate changes that staff has mentioned, both the 5-foot height fencing for the small dog park and with the revised layout, which keeps the hilltop area outside the dog park. Is there a second for the substitute motion?
I'll second.
Okay, speaking to the motion, I don't have too much to add other than I really feel like the right thing to do is to maintain that area for people to gather and congregate on. I think the area is very popular and frequently used. I think there's a broad section of the public who uses that has no awareness that this change is coming, and while so given that, I would be in favor of continuing on the track we're staying on, but adjusting the border accordingly. And Shani, would you like to speak as a seconder of the motion?
Yeah, I think that providing the privacy and quiet to the people who use the area that is below the top of that little hill is important. People do sit it there, people do use it, and it's also very visible from the park. So if we keep the fence right on top, the intrusion to the rest of the park is pretty substantial, whereas you move it down a little bit on the hill, and then people have the privacy in that picnic area and don't have dogs running right on top of them. And I have dogs, I love them, but not everybody does. So I think that's really important. In terms of the fence and the smaller dog area, I think that when you tell people, oh, there is a community meeting, come and participate, they don't know what they're going to lose. And so to me, that's still a problem. But the more important thing to me is to move that fence line to where it's not as visible from the park and to people that are using the areas around it.
Thank you. I think this is a good opportunity to clarify what the process is now that we have a motion and a substitute motion in place. We're not permitted to have more than 2 motions active. So the next step is opportunity for comment from any of the other commissioners regarding the substitute motion. There'll be a vote within the commission to see if the substitute motion is accepted or not. If the substitute motion passes, then it could be adopted. If the substitute motion fails, then we would go back to the original motion. Are there any questions? Would anyone like to speak further regarding the substitute motion?
Sorry, so the substitute motion is the one you just talked about and Shani seconded?
That's right. So the only difference between the substitute motion and the original motion is the fence line. The substitute motion includes the revised fence line, which decreases the overall area of the dog park and includes, it keeps the hilltop area out of the dog park and available for public use. For people to use.
Thank you, Chair. I would go with the substitute motion because I feel we should give more space to people who use that area for picnics. I don't think we should extend it. I love dogs too, so don't get me wrong as well. So.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on the substitute motion before we vote? Then I'll call on staff to have a roll call vote, please.
Chair Greenfield,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lemaire. Yes. Commissioner Brown,
No.
Commissioner Cribbs,
No.
Commissioner Freeman,
I said no.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes,
Commissioner Oche.
Yes, please.
Chair, that's 4 yes, 3 no.
Thank you, everyone. So the motion passes with the substitute motion passes with the changes adopted. The next item on the agenda is the Palo Alto horizontal levee pilot project. Darren, would you like to introduce our speaker?
Yes. Bear with me 1 second, Chair. I just want to make sure Sam is with us. Great. My pleasure to introduce Samantha Englage. She's a senior engineer with Public Works. Thank you for being here, Sam. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I just want to confirm that everybody can see my presentation appropriately.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. There it goes. Good evening, commissioners. Tonight, I'm here to provide an update on the Palo Alto horizontal levee pilot project. As such, I'm going to start with an overview of the project goals, head into an overview of the project at large, and then dig into some of the main components of the project from the 60% design, and then end with a discussion that I'm hoping in particular provide some feedback from the commissioners on the maintenance platform being a part of the official public access trail. So the Palo Alto horizontal levee pilot project is seeking to meet numerous goals. Those include improving the habitat of the site, adapting to sea level rise, utilizing nature-based adaptation strategies, integration of a horizontal levee on the bayfront of a flood control levee, maintain and provide compatible low-impact recreation and social infrastructure, provide polishing treatment to treated wastewater, and be on the leading edge of integrating habitat enhancement with sea level rise adaptation and novel wastewater treatment. I've included details on how the project is proposing to meet all 6 of these goals in the staff report for your reference. But tonight I'm planning to dig into 2 of these goals in particular that I think will be of most interest to the commission. And those are the goals to improve habitat. And then the 4th goal listed there to maintain and provide compatible low impact recreation and social infrastructure. So what is a horizontal levee? A horizontal levee is a gently sloping vegetated berm or ecotone slope that is on the water side of a flood control levee. On the figure here, it would be considered the portion that is circled in red. An ecotone slope, at its simplest definition, is a transition between 2 habitats. So in this case, it would be a transition between tidal marsh and upland habitats that would utilize freshwater marsh habitats. So these freshwater transition zones or ecotones used to occur where creeks, rivers, and springs discharge to the bay. Currently, these outputs are mostly restricted to very specific areas, and most of them are channelized for improved flood control. As such, to try and recreate that ecotone, the horizontal levee in this proposed project requires a freshwater source. So for this project, we are proposing to use treated wastewater from the adjacent wastewater treatment plant to provide that freshwater source. In another context, horizontal levees are a green infrastructure alternative to traditional grayscape solutions for wave attenuation on the bay side of a flood control levee. The traditional solution is riprap, and it's shown in the left photo here on the slide. Riprap is made up of large boulders that are able to absorb wave energy and protect the core of that flood control levee. On the right side of the slide, you'll see an alternative to riprap, and that's a horizontal levee. So horizontal levees would not only attenuate that wave energy, but it would also provide benefits, including habitat enhancement that riprap just doesn't quite do. Nope. There it goes. So the specific main components for the horizontal levee pilot project include a 500 linear foot berm that's fronted by a roughly 300 foot horizontal levee. We're proposing to install around 1,600 linear feet of underground piping to convey treated wastewater from the adjacent wastewater treatment plant to the project site. We would need to replace the Renzel Marsh pump that's located currently at the treatment plant so that we can not only continue to feed Renzel Marsh treated wastewater, but also use that same pump to feed this project site. We would also vegetate the horizontal levee to create an ecotone slope and diverse habitats, and realign the public marshfront trail to the top of the new berm. All right, so those are the main components of the project at a very high level. Now I'm going to dig in a little bit on goal number 1, improving habitat at the project site, and how the project proposes to do that. All right, so the project site is shown circled on this slide in red. It's roughly 2 acres in size, and it's adjacent to many facilities, including the Palo Alto Airport, Regional Water Quality Control Plant, and Bigsby Park. It's also situated kind of in between the current public access trail network, not in between, in the middle of the current public access trail network. The project site in particular has that public access trail currently running on the bayside perimeter of the project site. In this photo here, you could see it as that stark white outline that's separating the brownish upland area from the greenish salt marsh that's on the bayside. Here's another picture of the current conditions of the project site. Currently, the area is made up of poor quality upland habitat that supports ruderal non-native grasses. This photo right here is taken from the road looking out towards the project site, over the project site, towards the bay. Here's another picture of the current project site. This is taken on the public access trail within the project site. As you can see here, there is very little transition between the small area of salt marsh, which is that dark green area to the left of the photo. There's a small transition between the salt marsh that's shown in green and the brownish upland that's on the other side of the public access trail. That transition is pretty small. It's a couple of feet right now. And also I want you to note that there's a slough that is on the far left side of that salt marsh. So that little strip of salt marsh is pretty constrained right now. Despite the poor quality habitat currently at the project site, we do know that the site and the surrounding area is used by various species, including 2 endangered species, Ridgway's rail and salt marsh harvest mouse. A recent study found that About 30 rails are known to use the area, and that the estimated area of their location is shown on the photo to the right in those yellow circles. Another study indicated that that current small transitional area on the project site is most likely used as refugia habitat by the salt marsh harvest mice during high tides, but that public access trail most likely deters them from going further into the project site and using that area for foraging or nesting. So with this project, we are estimating that we would be increasing the marsh habitat by about 33% at the site. We are diversifying the habitats to now include wet meadow, freshwater marsh, and riparian scrub. We're increasing the amount of refugia habitat for key species, including Ridgway's rail and the salt marsh harvest mouse. And we're increasing the habitat connectivity in this area as well, which is also expected to improve species utilization of the site. All right, so goal number 4. Maintaining and providing compatible low impact recreation and social infrastructure. So as you know, the Baylands sees roughly 700,000 visitors a year, many of whom enjoy the network of trails that are kind of spider webbing throughout the area. The Marshfront Trail in particular was built around 2000 and is a part of not only the local trail network, but the regional Bay Trail as well. This area is also within the jurisdiction of the Bay Conservation and Development Commission, or BCDC, as well as other resource agencies. The segment of trail that is within the project site is roughly 500 linear feet and is shown again in the photo on the slide as running the bayside perimeter of the project and is shown in that stark white. So in considering where and how we relocate the trail in the project design, there were several design considerations that we kept in mind. Those include the need to connect that relocated trail to the existing trail network on both ends to ensure that we are maintaining that public access experience. We needed to limit the creation of informal trails by the public and in the hopes to create a substantial no access area to help species better utilize the habitat that we are enhancing. We wanted to ensure that we were increasing habitat connectivity, so we didn't want the trail to interrupt that connectivity, again, in the hopes of improving species utilization of the site. We want to utilize screening vegetation as a physical barrier and promote habitat use. And that screening vegetation is both for the public's enjoyment as well as the species utilization. We wanted to promote tangential approach of wildlife. Research has shown that that is less obstructive and less intrusive to species utilizing the area. We wanted to limit raptor perching opportunities, provide educational areas, and ensure that we are maintaining access to the site for maintenance. So with all of that in mind, we are proposing to move the current public access trail from its current location on the bay margin, and that's shown in red right now on this figure. And we propose to move it from the red location to the brown location that's closer to the road. The new trail would still connect to the larger trail network on both ends of the project site. The new trail is proposed to be 8 feet wide and roughly 1.5 feet above or 1.5 feet higher than the adjacent road. This relocation would actually reduce the total trail length by about 80 linear feet, but would provide 50 to 80 feet of uninterrupted habitat on the bayside of the road, bayside of the trail. It also provides about 50 feet of buffer between the trail and the adjacent road. This 50-foot buffer also reserves space for that larger levee improvement project to come in the future and construct a larger flood control levee and not build directly on top of the horizontal levee pilot project. Part of the proposed project is to create diverse habitats that include ridges or high points and swells, which would be low points. Here are profile views of what the site would look like at these two typical sections. So the top is showing a typical ridge section in profile view, and the bottom is showing a typical swell section. You can see the current road on the left side of the profiles, followed by a reserved area for future flood control levee. And as you continue towards the right side of the slide, you'll see that the trail, and then the habitat oriented components of the project continue on towards the right. So I'd like to draw your attention back to the reserved area for the flood control levee towards the left side of the slide. This area also provides a buffer between the road and the public access trail. And that's pretty important to help satisfy BCDC's early feedback and concerns about the project potentially degrading the public experience at the site due to the shorter trail length and the closer proximity of the trail to the road. BCDC is, excuse me, BCDC is also recommending that we make the existing intake structure for the ITT marsh an official part of the public access trail. Right now, it's not an official part of the current trail, but it's not excluding the public. And the area that I'm talking about right now is the area circled in green on the screen. Here is a photo of the intake structure on the left, and you'll see that it's open and the public can access it right now, but it's not an official part of that trail that's right to the left of the screen. BCDC in particular is hoping that by us including this as an official part of the trail, that we can ensure, excuse me, that we can ensure that the project provides the maximum feasible public access as required by their laws and policies. If we were to move forward with making this an official part of the public access trail, we would have to allow for ADA access. So we'd have to adjust a few things on the intake structure. And we would have to conduct nesting season closures every year from February to August. To further minimize the impact to species utilization at the site, BCDC would also like to see additional screening vegetation on this trail spur to the intake structure. And also some signage reminding visitors that this is a sensitive habitat and to essentially keep the noise down. So this is one area in particular that I am looking for feedback from the commissioners tonight. So some next steps for the project. We are hoping to continue our collaboration with the San Francisco Estuary Partnership. We are working very hard right now to finalize the design and CEQA all by the end of this year. We are planning on coming back to the Parks and Rec Commission later this year to provide information on CEQA, as well as ask for a recommendation on a Parks Improvement Ordinance. We're hoping to get final resource agency permits by 2023 and construct the project in 2024. So with that, I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Samantha, and welcome back. You presented to the commission on this subject for a number of years on many occasions, and it's nice to see you again. I'm wondering if you could just step back and give a little bit more overview to the commission, particularly the members who haven't heard from you before, in terms of putting this in perspective, what this pilot project is, what the goals and intended goals of the project are, the region that it's would be applicable to, and also if the pilot is successful, what happens and what are potential impacts or implications for the full redesign of the area in the vicinity.
Sure. So there's a whole bunch of goals for the project, of which that I stated previously, but I could put back up on the screen. And I could dig into a little bit more of some of the ones that I didn't go into more detail. But so ultimately what we're looking at doing is installing a pilot horizontal levee that we can not only improve the project site in the near term for habitat and prepare it for sea level rise, and prepare for the upcoming larger flood control levee projects, but also we want to collect data on design parameters, permitting requirements, costing of these systems as well, so that hopefully we can convince not only our community to adopt horizontal levees in the larger flood control levee projects that are coming down the pipeline, but also to help the region adopt similar nature-based sea level rise adaptation strategies as well. So it's seen as an important project locally, but it also has regional implications.
Thanks. And could you touch a little bit on the, this is an experiment, it's a pilot. Can you talk about the uniqueness of this and what the precedents for this are in other locations, and or how new and unique is this?
Sure. So as far as I know, if we build this horizontal levee pilot project by 2024, it will be the first within the San Francisco Bay Area of its kind. There is a research site that has a horizontal levee built in San Leandro at the Oraloma Sanitary District. That horizontal levee is really a demonstration project that is a closed loop system. So there's no interaction with the tide, there's no bay interaction with that system. This pilot project is looking to advance the knowledge taken from the Oraloma horizontal levee demonstration project to the next level and have some interaction with the tides and the bay, really to get a better sense of items such as sediment accumulation and accretion. We're also hoping to get more information from this project on the permitting aspects and the construction cost aspects that the Oraloma demonstration project just couldn't do because of the core components of that being a closed loop system and really a research site. So this pilot project has a lot of people looking at it for answers to, and I also want to pause and convey that it's a pilot project, but it's not a temporary project. It is being designed to be a permanent installation with ultimate integration into a larger flood control levee improvement project that would then be improving the levees throughout the Baylands and not just this one small portion of it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And we do have a member of the public waiting to speak. Do any commissioners have any clarifying questions before we go to the public comment? Okay, let's move forward with our speaker, please.
Our speaker is Eileen. Eileen, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Greenfield. I am Eileen McLaughlin, and I represent the Citizens Committee to Complete the Refuge. And I want to say that I have, with other environmental groups, had the opportunity to meet with Sam and related staff for the project previously, and also attend a webinar that they put together, I don't know, 2021 sometime, I think, that was very informative. From the side of the view of how this, and what this habitat would be built to replace and to do, and also about the separation of public and wildlife. What is they had several researchers that spoke on studies about how, how wildlife respond when they have people present along trails near them, and also what you have to do to keep people and dogs and other things out of wild areas. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I'm very pleased in reading what I did in the document that, and to hear what Sam was saying, that they are actually planning on putting the trail behind shrubbery that'll give the wildlife some privacy. And also, we knew they were going to be moving it back, and that I believe also to put a fence along that trail, another way of keeping the dogs that might be off leash wandering off there. So we're pleased to see those improvements and those protections. What's the use of expanding habitat for wildlife if there's so much presence of people that the wildlife doesn't want to go there? So I think this is a good thing for both wildlife and people in the end. We are concerned long-term about that when that the sea level rise levy is put in, and what that might have to do to changing the trail and where the people might walk on it. We are concerned about a future tall levee, which this project doesn't control, but might have a trail on top of it, and that would bring all of those views of people right into the marshland and into the species that are attempting to succeed there. So I hope this project keeps moving forward in the same way as it already has. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple more comments, which are really more clarifying questions for Sam before we move on to hear from the commission. Is the regional water control plant project proposal that's been come to the commission recently, is that directly related to the change which you were articulating, or is that something different? Darren, you can.
No, I think you're referring to the local advanced water purification.
Right. So is that separate? It just looked like it was the same area in the control plant.
Yeah, it's separate.
Okay, thank you. Good. And could you just repeat a little bit what you were saying about the specific area you're looking for feedback from us on? And I thought I heard you say something about a potential trail closure during some months, and it wasn't quite, and the details of that. Could you just repeat that for clarity, please?
Sure. So there is, and I wonder if I can share my screen one more time, and I think that would be helpful. Oops. Okay. So the area that BCDC in particular wants us to consider making part of the public access trail is circled in green here. It's the intake structure to the ITT marsh that's behind Bigsby Park. Underneath this structure, so this is a wooden platform here. Underneath this structure, there is a pipe that is bringing bay water from Harbor Marsh underneath this intake structure. It then goes underground and across Bigsby Park on the landfill access road and over to the ITT marsh. So the main purpose of this structure is to maintain that intake structure and make sure that it's still flowing the right direction and sending bay water down to ITT marsh. But it also provides the public currently with a nice little overlook to Harbor Marsh. And BCDC thinks that it would be a great addition to the public access trail to provide some sort of kind of waterfront view. And so this in particular is what would need to be closed seasonally from February to August during the rail nesting season. So every year BCDC is suggesting that we maybe string some chain across it to say it's closed, and then to throughout the year remind users of this area that it's sensitive habitat and to keep kind of the volume low. So this is the one area of the trail that would need seasonal closures. The rest of the public access trail doesn't need to be closed for that. But that's the area that I would love to hear some feedback from the commission on, whether or not it's of interest to include as an official part of the trail or leave it as is, as part of essentially the main purpose being for maintenance. And if the public accesses it, that's great, but we're not going to advertise it and we're not going to really make it an official part of that trail.
So if it becomes part of the public access trail, then it would need to have the ADA upgrades. And if it's not part of the public access trail, it would just be available for people to wander onto and wouldn't include the upgrades. But effectively, it's a little bit of a stub outside the main trail, and it's an overlook, and that's the only area that would be closed. Okay, thank you. Comments from commissioners? Commissioner Oche, would you like to start?
Thank you very much, Samantha, for the presentation and also sharing the relocated trail design considerations. I'm just a little bit more concerned, or out of just inquiry about community engagement and stakeholder feedback about the pilot project. If you can shed some more light about that. Thank you.
Sure. So we've had quite a lot of community engagement to date on the project. This has been a project in the works for quite a long time. So since 2018, we've been working on this project. So we have made stakeholder engagement a core component of it. It's also very important to our partners in the project, the San Francisco Estuary Partnership, that we are also actively and continuing to engage our public and our community on the project. So I believe it was 2021, we had 2 stakeholder workshops that focused on different aspects of the project. One focused on these competing goals of providing public access, but also enhancing habitat utilization by species, and looking regionally at how people balance those and how the research says that best can be done. We also had a workshop on engaging diverse communities and different nonprofit organizations to see if there was a better way that we could be hearing from different parts of our community and engaging and using nonprofit organizations as a, I feel like I'm saying engage stakeholder a lot, but as kind of like a partner on the project so that we can build off of their existing networks to gain more feedback and participation from the community on the project. We also have plans in the work to continue stakeholder feedback, not only now during design, but through construction and also after construction during maintenance and monitoring. So some of the upcoming public engagement opportunities include a BioBlitz that is going to occur in October of this year, where we're going to be asking the community to come out to the project site and see what kind of species they can identify using the iNaturalist app so that we can get some information on the current project's utilization by different species, the current project site. We also have some ideas for how to use community-based restoration during construction for the planting aspects of the project. And we're looking into right now working on some partnerships to develop some community-based science that would help us monitor the project after construction to see how it's developing and how it's working so that we can collect data on that. So we have a lot of public engagement plans in the works. Some are more concrete than others, but it remains a key priority for the project team.
Thank you, Samantha. So this is publicized on the website, or how do people get information about the schedule for community engagement?
Sure. So we are including this project on our sea level rise adaptation or sea level rise website. We also have a San Francisco Estuary Partnership website. And we have a couple of email lists of known stakeholders that are interested in hearing updates about the project and opportunities such as that. But we also use all of the other city avenues to publicize for stakeholder engagement as well, including social network updates and advertisements. And I believe in the last one we did a email through the Sustainability and Action Plan newsletter as well.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Planhouse.
Thank you. Hi, Sam. I have a few questions about the have you looked at the BCCP and did you consider how this might work with the BCCP? And one of the things that was discussed with the Baylands Comprehensive Conservation Plan was to actually daylight the connector that this structure, the intake structure leads to, so that this actually all becomes, instead of a pipe, becomes a facility that's good for the wildlife and for people to enjoy. So I was wondering if this is compatible or there's any problem that later would be more difficult to implement for the connection to the ITT area.
Great question. So horizontal levees are included in the BCCP plan as an area to be looked into further and promoted. The concept of daylighting the current pipe and intake structure to ITT Marsh, I don't think it would be in conflict with this project. It's on the perimeter of the project site. I'd have to double check the BCCP plan, but I don't remember if the daylighting would be on this side of Embarcadero Road or if it would start on the other side of it. Darren, do you recall that?
Yeah, thanks, Sam and Commissioner Kleinhaus. So I don't believe the BCCP has any specific recommendations on daylighting that, nor does it say where exactly it would take place. I think it was discussed amongst stakeholders. I do recall that for sure, but I don't believe it exists as a recommendation in the current draft of the BCCP.
Thanks. And for the benefit of the full commission, could you explain what daylighting is, please?
I will. There is a pipe underground. Daylighting means creating a little creek instead of a pipe underground, or opening it to the daylight and letting vegetation come in and letting people and wildlife enjoy it.
I'm sorry, Shawnee, you need to speak into your mic. We can't.
I'm sorry, letting people and wildlife enjoy a creek instead of a pipe. So basically you dig up and let the water be exposed to the sun and to everything else. So basically opening it and making it into a waterway. And if it hasn't made it to the end of the BCCP, then it probably should. Other questions I have to do with the trail. You talk about low impact recreation. And, you know, at Oraloma, there is nobody walks on those levees. Nobody goes there, right? It's a closed area. You have to get, go through the security and all sorts of stuff to go in there. But here we'll experience a lot of activity. So for recreation there'll be a lot of people going and enjoying the levee and enjoying the views, but it's also part of the Bay Trail, right? So that means that all the commute will be there as well. And that is not low impact. So I was wondering how you reconcile commute and recreation and low impact recreation in a place like this. And the reason I worry about it is a lot of creatures will go to the top of the levee to sit there or to, sit in the sun, and asphalt attracts creatures too if you pave it. And we're going to have a lot of traffic there. So I'm not exactly sure how you reconcile that.
So currently, it's currently a part of the Bay Trail. And so I would expect the traffic that it currently experiences to be pretty similar before and after the project. And currently, even with that traffic, there are significant populations of rails in the area, pretty close to the project site. And there is some adaptation that species do have to public access. I think the project maintains the existing the essence of public access that the site currently has, and actually improves it for species utilization of the site by pulling it back away from the salt marsh habitat, so that species have more areas to kind of hide a little bit from the current public using the trail. I think it's always a difficult thing to balance public access and species utilization. And I think this project improves this particular site's ability to balance those two things. And I think it actually errs on the side of more species utilization than public access with the proposed trail realignment and increased habitat.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that assuming that existing commute levels will continue to be the same, given all the development that is coming around the Bay Trail, is maybe not a good prediction, because there's so much more office that's going to be built, and people and the projects that are proposing that level of development, which is in the tens of thousands of millions of square feet of office, all rely on the Bay Trail and other trails to bring people in instead of cars. So we can expect a lot more traffic. I would just think that we need to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown.
Great presentation. No further questions. Thank you to Commissioner Oche for asking questions that I had. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll just remind commissioners that Sam was looking for specific feedback on whether we would recommend having the access viewpoint be included as part of the public access trail or not. So something for people to keep in mind to comment on if they have feelings on that. Vice Chair.
Yes, just a quick question. As far as the cost of the project, I saw it's been funded by grants. Is that completely funded by grants, or is it the city paying anything for this?
Good question. So the majority has been funded by grants, especially the design stage. So it's a pretty expensive design. So far, it's about $2 million design. By the end, we're probably looking at about $2.5 million design when we're finished, unless we have a significant delay or change. And all of that has been paid for by grants obtained by San Francisco Estuary Partnership. So the city throughout the design portion has really just provided staff time and support. And most recently, the city is paying for CEQA, and we're starting to provide more funds as we're gearing up for construction. But the majority of the funding, both for design and construction, is going to continue to be from grants.
I think it's great to be able to utilize grants to do a project like this. And I have no further questions, but thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you. Nellis.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Very well put together to the point that it's made it very easy for me to understand it. I do have one question. Well, first of all, the one area you were talking about as far as getting, I guess, our approval on the lookout for that trail. I think that would be great. You basically giving something back. The other question is, once this project, and it sounds like it's already kicked off in a way with the design, but once the actual work starts, what's the time frame for that, and then what's the impact to people being able to take advantage of using the trails that they are currently using? And it sounds like one trail is going to be, there seems to be some overlap or some encroaching some of the other areas. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so in terms of construction timing, it's actually a pretty quick project, and it's also a little tricky too, because we are going to be constrained by nesting season in terms of how much heavy equipment we can use out at the site. So right now, we are trying to work through the construction sequencing and scheduling, but it does look like it's going to be less than a year long of construction. It's going to be most likely a couple of months. As part of the construction, we are going to have to reroute the public access trail and users of the trail in that area. We're also going to have to do some traffic control and close one lane of Embarcadero Road.
So when you're saying reroute, does that mean that the trail is going to be closed? And when you close something where people have been used to taking a particular route, they tend to find workarounds, right? So how do you plan to manage that?
Yeah, so fortunately we have a sidewalk on the other side of Embarcadero Road that is that would be I believe the entire extent of the trail closure. So we would route people to the other side to utilize the sidewalk rather than try and create a new trail out in the habitat.
Okay, good. That's all. Thank you.
Ann?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much. And second of all, I have all my questions and comments already answered because I wrote down 4 things and everybody took care of them. So timing, when is this going to start? What's the possible cost, the potential cost, the fact you're using grants? And is that 30 by 30 that was mentioned last month to be part of this, Sam?
The 30 by 30. I'm not.
The new state money that's supposed to be available pretty soon. Will it be able to be applied to this, or?
I'm not sure. Right now we have had funding from in the past Coastal Conservancy as well as the EPA Water Quality Improvement Fund. And then for construction, we're still trying to get enough funds to complete construction, but we're fairly confident, and I feel like I'm jinxing it right now, so I'm going to knock on wood, but I'm fairly confident that we are going to be able to get another EPA Water Quality Improvement Fund grant to complete construction. So I'm not quite sure if we would need to go to the 30 by 30 opportunity, but if this EPA Water Quality Improvement Grant falls through, then we would definitely take a look at it.
Well, it's great to know that the grants are available. And then the last comment is just to, as you're having to close things, you'll be communicating to the public so people aren't surprised.
Definitely.
And then kudos too for the partnerships with environmental groups and the potential education coming out of that. So this was a great report to hear and really fun to read as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Sam, for sharing your passion with us and giving us an update on the project. I have a couple quick questions. One regarding can you clarify what the closure area would be for on Embarcadero Road and the timing? And I'll include my follow-up question is, are there any potential impacts with overlap timing for the Baylands Tidegate project, which will also have construction impacts? Would trails be closed at the same time? Would there be road issues, et cetera? And Darren, please chime in to the extent needed.
Yeah, great questions. So I am in coordination with the project manager of the Tidegate, as well as a few other projects that may be occurring around the same time and in the same area. So we do plan to coordinate efforts, and especially any kind of road closures and rerouting of pedestrian access in the area. It's still a little bit in the works, and I'm trying to see right now if I can find a good figure to kind of illustrate maybe this one. So when we're talking about road closures, mainly we're talking about this area here. Can everybody see? Oh, I'm not even sharing my screen. Hold on. There it is.
Thanks.
Okay, so when we're talking about road closures, we're mainly concerned about this road here, where we need to trench a pipeline from the wastewater treatment plant here down Embarcadero Road. So there will be a temporary closure here on this stretch, and then another one down here all the way to the project site. And this is where it gets a little bit more of a lengthy, prolonged closure than this one here. This one will be pretty quick. The one down here, we're still trying to figure out exactly how long and what that's going to look like. But construction is really expected to be pretty quick, just a couple of months. So it wouldn't be too long for people to be redirected across the street to use the sidewalk on this side here to then access the other trail network over here, up here. And then there would be at least one lane of Harbor Road or Embarcadero Road here open at all times, so that we can maintain that car traffic as well.
Great, thank you. It'd be helpful to get a coordinated plan with the Tidegate project and with this project and overlay them so we can see what if there's any issues we might want to look to optimize. As far as the inclusion of the public access trail, or as far as including the overlook area as part of the public access trail, what would be, does staff have an estimated cost for that? What it would require to make the overlook ADA compliant?
Yeah, great question. Unfortunately, we don't have an estimate of the scope of the work required to do that or the cost associated with it. That was a very recent thought from BCDC at our, was our June site visit from BCDC that they shared that potential requirement with us. So the design team right now is currently looking at what the structure would need to make it ADA. We do think that we have sufficient turning radius, which is good. So we wouldn't have to, expand out that platform. So the thought is that we would just have to provide a ramp and some other minor adjustments to that platform, but we're still looking into that.
Thank you. I mean, including it as part of the public access trail sounds great, but it's kind of hard to endorse it without knowing what the cost is. And so does staff have a recommendation on this? That it's too new for them to develop a recommendation and they're looking for our feedback here?
Correct. It's a bit too new right now for a recommendation.
And are there any potential impacts that might not be obvious to us if this were included as part of the public access trail, somewhat a minor increase in maintenance expenses? Or?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Go ahead, Darren. You could speak to the maintenance requirements better than I can.
Yeah, I was really thinking, it depends on what we're putting in that trail. This would be a new connection to it, I imagine. What kind of surfacing we're talking about. And then the closure, how we're doing the closure. We're trying to get away from the cable gates that I think Sam might have mentioned. We've used them elsewhere, and they have the potential for accidents where bicyclists cannot see them. You know, we usually have signage, reflectors, and that kind of thing, but there's the potential not to see that. And we're moving away from that and more towards gates or something else to limit our exposure to liability and definitely keep people safe. So, you know, open space staff would love to help be part of that conversation of what ultimately goes in there in terms of that seasonal closure and how we do it. Of course, it could be just signage, but if we really want to make it effective, it's probably more like a gate. But I don't think the seasonal closure would be too onerous in terms of staff time to implement that. I think it wouldn't be too bad. And I don't think, assuming we keep our standards of what we typically do for trails out there, that the mowing or trail surface upkeep would be too much either.
Okay, thank you. And the last question, you're planning to return later this calendar year with the CEQA report and a PIO request. Would that be the same meeting potentially, or you look? That's thought.
Correct. Yeah, right now we're planning on bringing those both at the same time.
Great, thank you. Are there any follow-up questions from commission members?
I just
One
have
question.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Nellis, go ahead.
The chart that you had up for Commissioner Greenfield, the one that showed the roadway, and I think there was like is that where the trail was being rerouted?
This one?
Yeah. There's
So
a trail along the, I guess, the marsh front trail, right?
Correct.
And so that cuts off, right, where you're doing your work. So is that the one that's being rerouted, or is that impacted or not?
Correct. So we would have to reroute the Marshfront Trail. We're still currently figuring out where exactly that would occur. Most likely it would be up here where we would reroute users to across the street, where they can use the sidewalk down here to then connect over to this other side of the project site. But that's still being decided. We need to figure out the sequencing and the timing of this pipeline trench work. And that may determine whether or not we provide a bypass up here or down here.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Johnny?
I have
Yes.
a very small question. Do you know if there's any birds nesting under the structure right now?
Under the intake structure?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. It's a pretty constant high flow of water underneath that intake structure. If you stand on top of it, you'll hear the water rushing underneath you. I would be surprised if there is any nesting or species kind of staying in that area for any period of time. But we can take a look at it.
I'm just curious. There is an intake structure in Mountain View that has a lot of swallows nesting in it. I was just wondering.
Interesting. We can take a look.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. Great to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 10:35 now. We have one item left on the agenda, the fundraising ad hoc update. Do we want to power through this evening, or do you want to bring this back next month?
I have a suggestion, if I may.
Please.
I would love to suggest that hopefully everybody's read the memo that arrived as part of the agenda. And to give you a little background, we actually wrote that, the ad hoc did, for the staff, so that then we sort of expected some sort of a staff report, but because it looks like the memo is exactly as we wrote it, what we wanted, and which is great, thank you for that. What we wanted was to make sure that the things that we were suggesting were appropriate and staff felt like they could be done. So that piece of the memo is left out. So that doesn't matter one way or the other, but that's just the background. But my suggestion for tonight, since it is getting late, and what we had intended, and thanks to the chair for kind of pushing us to this, was to have a very, as he said, robust discussion. I'm not sure, looking at my fellow commissioners, that any of us are up to having a robust discussion right now about this really important item. So I'm wondering if people could read through this, ask any questions just by even sending an email, if that is appropriate or not. And we can re-look at this next month or not. Otherwise, we can power through it for 10 minutes, but I'm not so sure it will achieve what we intended to have it achieve. So what do you think, Chair?
So the presentation or the attachment is part of the public record. So that's available for all of us to read. We would not be in a position to, for the members of who are not of the commission, who are not part of the ad hoc, we would not be able to send emails to the ad hoc.
That's right.
For given Brown Act constraints, but we could make sure we have an opportunity to formulate the questions, and perhaps if we deferred, this would also give staff an opportunity to review your ideas and provide feedback that you were suggesting. Or we can move through this now, whatever people would prefer.
So forget about the emails and we'll just take it up next month. Is that what you're thinking, Jim?
It's either on the agenda, if not, the agenda can be shuffled depending on what people are expecting to attend outside.
Before we leave the topic, though, I just would like to say that this ad hoc has been in some form or another going on for 4 years with really good work from commissioners and really good reports. And thanks to you, Jeff, for saying, let's have a discussion about it, because during COVID, we really couldn't do that. So I think that's important to acknowledge it. But certainly David Moss was a real contributor to this, and want to make sure that we don't lose sight of that.
So what am I looking for input from other commissioners, if you'd like to continue this evening or not?
No. Next time is better.
I second that.
I'll be on vacation.
Okay. So I've got three no's and Jeff, do you want to?
I'm open to either way, whatever works for the commission. I'm open to stay and power through it, or if there's not the will, we can revisit at another time.
Andy?
And defer to the ad hoc, so either Ann or Jeff, they have thoughts either way.
Right. I would defer as well. So how about if the ad hoc decides if they'd like to present?
So what do we
tonight or
want to do? I'm sorry.
I'm asking the ad hoc to decide if they'd like to present tonight or not.
Shall we go ahead? I'm either way.
I think it would be better if we, reschedule. My opinion.
Okay, so I'm hearing Ann and Joy both members of the ad hoc preferring to reschedule?
I actually read your memo and it's pretty amazing. And I had some comments. Actually, that would take quite a lot of discussion, which is why I mean, I like it. I just don't think there's something wrong. I just think it will take discussion.
Okay, we're going to defer item 8 to next month. Now we're moving on to Commissioner Board Member questions, comments, announcements, and future agenda item discussion. Do any board members have any, or do any commissioners have any comments they'd like to share, or questions, announcements?
This is for the next agenda.
This is comments in general, and then we'll get to the next agenda after that.
Just have a little follow-up with regards to the Institute of Sustainability Infrastructure awards that I had mentioned in the last PLC meeting. And I had a meeting with the Director for Education, and they're willing to do a free presentation if we're open to that. Just want to put that out there. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that'd be helpful to share with staff and get some feedback from staff and in terms of the appropriateness and how you see it might fit in. And I want to respect your time and adding more to your plate, but look for your feedback on how to move forward with that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Commissioner Oche and I did meet and on general commission business, and she had mentioned and shared that with me. I think it does have potential, and I'm interested in learning a little bit more about it. And then maybe we could see about how it fit into maybe an agendized item. Or Commissioner Oche explained that it could also do a presentation to staff. And so I could flesh it out a little bit before and then bring it to the commission if it seems like a good fit.
Okay, we'll look forward to hearing more from both of you on that.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other announcements? Comments?
Yes, in terms of the swimming pool and the status of it at this point, is it possible to kind of re-engage with the school district right now to see if there can be some shared use with the pools in the various schools before we talk about building another pool in South Palo Alto?
Sounds like an obvious path to pursue.
Yeah, I think we can.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to next month's agenda. And I will just note related to comments, but the Vice Chair and I met with Darren earlier this week and spent a while just reviewing potential agenda items for the rest of the year and taking a look at all the ad hocs and trying to put down in the big picture what we're trying to bring into agendas for the rest of the year. And there's quite a bit to pack in, and it doesn't help that we didn't get through everything tonight, but we're going to get there. So Darren, what do we have on tap for next month?
On the August agenda, Chair, we've got the advanced water purification system. This is one that had been to the commission a couple months ago, and they'd be coming back. And then utilities department update on projects in foothills and Rastero preserves. Give an update on the work they're doing. They're doing undergrounding of electric utilities for fire safety. And then I think we can get the skate park recommendation as an action item in August as well.
Great.
And what else?
So water purification, utilities updates, and then the skate park.
And fundraising ad hoc update.
Fundraising ad hoc.
Okay, that sounds like a full plate. And then we're looking to, in the near term, get the park dedication ad hoc come to the commission, the electric conveyances, aka eBike ad hoc, come in and have a discussion, particularly as we look towards having a recommendation to City Council by the end of the year. And first T update potentially after that. Anything that other commissioners would like to suggest as potential agenda items in the upcoming months or later on this year? And with that, I will call this meeting to a close. Thanks everyone for hanging in there tonight, and we'll see you next month.